a rule taker and have to pay millions of pounds to Brussels for the first time since Brexit. Are we slowly rejoining the European Union? On today's show, I'll be joined by Mark Francois MP, who's claimed Keir Starmer remains a Remainer, and he always will be. And a violent protest erupted at an asylum seeker hotel in Epping last night after a resident there was accused of 3 sex attacks on 2 schoolgirls, just 8 days after arriving in Britain by a small boat. But was the unrest last night sparked by anti-racists shipped in and given a police escort from out of town? I'll be joined by the local MP. And a Labour activist honoured for services to integration is under fire after GBNews uncovers footage of him urging Muslims in Rotherham to boycott the police during the rape gang scandal, should he now lose his MBE. And after spiralling violence and 2 murders last year, revellers at the Hill Carnival will be scanned for the first time by police facial recognition cameras. Is this a price worth paying or a worrying slide towards a police state? And that's all coming up in your next hour. Now that is a show. I want to put this point to you. Every time there is a disruption outside an asylum seeker hotel, the mainstream media goes straight to the button marked far right. You're far right if you care about children's safety. You're far right if you care about women's safety, about crime in your area. You're far right because you're never consulted and you're not happy about it. But here's the point. Well, every time we see these protests now, we see a counter-protest in the area, and evidence is emerging that we've seen here at GB News. These are people, antagonists, shipped in from outside the area, from London, known antagonists who get a police escort in and out of the area, shouting fascist scum off our streets to mothers, to children, to concerned residents, and poof, it kicks off. I put it to you. Are provocateurs on the far left equally culpable, or at least a part of this equation? I'll be speaking to the local MP in Epping in the show to ask that precise question. Why is it far right to care about safety? It isn't. It's just right. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. But now's your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories: more than 23,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel this year as hundreds more made the crossing this morning. People smuggling gangs have taken advantage of thick fog in the English Channel today to launch multiple small boats towards UK waters. GB News can also reveal more than 320 migrants made the crossing yesterday. The number who have crossed so far this year is more than 55% up on the same period last year. That's as 2 people have been arrested following anti-immigration protests overnight at a hotel in Epping. Essex police said a police officer sustained minor injuries after protesters clashed with police. Fireworks were let off and eggs were thrown outside the hotel. Police vehicles were also damaged. It's the latest demonstration to happen outside the Bell Hotel after a 38-year-old man was accused of sexual assault. That man denied trying to kiss a 14-year-old girl when he appeared at Chelmsford Magistrates Court yesterday. In other news, police say they'll take no further action over rap group Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury. Officers said they'd taken advice from the Crown Prosecution Service and decided there's not enough evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction for any offence. The Avon and Somerset Force started investigating the Irish group's show at the festival last month, as well as comments by punk rap duo Bob Vylan. It said they were looking at a possible public order incident and a senior detective had been appointed to lead the case. However, the force said it was still investigating Bob Vylan's performance after the duo led on stage chants of death to the IDF. Elsewhere, Russian spies and hackers targeting the UK and others have been sanctioned today by the government. Today's measures target 3 units of the Russian Military Intelligence Agency, and 18 military intelligence officers have conducted a sustained campaign of malicious cyber activity over many years. Foreign Secretary David Lammy said GRU spies are running a campaign to destabilise Europe, undermine Ukraine's sovereignty and threaten the safety of British citizens. Diane Abbott says the Labour leadership wants me out and that her comments in a BBC interview released this week were factually correct after she was suspended from the Labour Party for a second time. Her suspension comes after she doubled down on comments about racism for which she'd previously apologised. She's the fifth Labour MP to be suspended by the Prime Minister this week. Miss Abbott was suspended by Labour in 2023 after writing a letter to The Observer comparing racism experienced by people of colour with that seen by other groups. She apologised and was readmitted to the party before the 2024 general election. Rachel Maskell, Brian Leishman, Chris Hinchcliffe and Neil Duncan-Jordan also all lost the whip this week. They now sit as independents in the Commons. Tributes have been paid to the victims of a heartbreaking and devastating crash after a school coach trip returning from Exmoor Zoo killed a child. One message said, "Our community is holding you all tight and surrounding you with love." Another said, "We are truly heartbroken to hear of the tragic events affecting the pupils, the staff and families of Minehead Middle School." 21 others were taken to hospital following the collision between Wedden Cross and Timbercombe yesterday afternoon. Several had serious injuries, including 2 children. There were 60 to 70 people on board at the time. Sir Keir Starmer said there are no adequate words to acknowledge the death of a child. Elsewhere, former Defence Secretary Grant Shapps says he'd make the same call again in a heartbeat when it comes to the Afghan data leak, saying Afghans who helped Britain risked execution and British special forces were exposed. The personal details of spies and special forces were included in the data breach that led to thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK. Information about more than 100 Britons was also contained in the breach. Shapps said the injunction blocking the reporting of the breach at the time was quite rightly applied for by his predecessor, and he believed at the time it should stay in place. The super injunction preventing the reporting of even the existence of the injunction was lifted earlier this week. And parts of southern England are set to be battered by torrential rain tomorrow, which could cause significant flooding and a danger to life, the Met Office has said. An amber warning for thunderstorms has been issued between 4 a.m. and 11 a.m. tomorrow, spanning major towns and cities, including London, Brighton, Portsmouth and Cambridge. Forecasters have warned of sudden flooding in roads and homes, with some more remote communities at risk of being cut off. And those are the latest headlines for now. More news in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3456 and €1.1553. The price of gold, £2,495.46 per ounce. The FTSE 100 is at 8,984 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. And back now to the ongoing Afghan data breach scandal, as lawyers are now seeking to use human rights laws, of course, to force the government to bring up to 100,000 Afghans into the UK after their names were leaked. Now, those ECHR could claim their rights were breached because they are in danger of reprisals from the Taliban. And meanwhile, it has been revealed that as few as 1 in 16 Afghans identified in that data breach had actual, genuine claims for asylum. Well, let's get now to the studio. I'm joined by our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome to the studio. Pleasure, as always. It was bad enough yesterday. 100 top-draw Brits, Special Forces, SAS, MI6 on this Taliban kill list. Today, we learned that 15 out of 16 of those already here are bogus claims, and how our old friends, human rights lawyers, licking their lips. 100,000 extras could be forced upon us. What's the latest lines?
Yes, that's what lawyers are saying, who may be acting for some of those on that so-called kill list. They're saying that if you're on that list, you're under threat. You should have a right now to move to this country. Now, The government disputes that. So we know there was as many as 18,000, 20,000, 18,000 on that list. With family members, it could be 100,000. That figure is disputed by the government. They say this is a hypothetical claim, Martin. They say that they will robustly defend our position on legal action and compensation. The Paul Rimmer review, published this week, found that it's highly unlikely that being on the spreadsheet means you're more likely to be targeted. The 100,000 estimate is not a government figure, they say. So there are concerns about that figure. They say that figure is an estimate based on family members. And anyway, being on that list doesn't guarantee the right to come here. But we are going through the reaction to an extraordinary story. If we'd done at the very beginning, we would have done days and days and days of stories over the past couple of years about this. We're trying to react in real time to a story which happened 2 or 3 years ago, but we only found out about this week.
OK, Chris Athens, we have some breaking news lines for you now, and it's just in, and it's this. The Avon and Somerset police have said that the child who died in a school coach crash in Minehead on Thursday was a 10-year-old boy. Tragic news there, just to repeat that. The police in Avon and Somerset have said that the child who died in a school coach crash in Minehead on Thursday, yesterday, was a 10-year-old boy. Every parent's worst nightmare. Sending love to all in that community. Chris, back to this story now.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, does the public have any right to have faith in the government? The government say, oh, no, this is not true. We won't have to accept 100,000. We can't even deport known criminals because they don't like chicken nuggets.
And we know how courts can knock governments about. We saw that with the Rwanda plan, just trying to deport people to Rwanda, which the government said it proved to be a safe country by sending 2 Rwandans there. Still problems. So we are told this won't be a problem, but this list is out there. The government says that not everyone on it is at risk of their lives. The issue of this kill list, but experts, legal experts who look at that list say, well, you may have a case to come to the UK, and of course many of them want to come to the UK.
Of course I do. Well, let's get to our next guest now. Please stick with us, Chris, and more politics after this. And that is the director of the Afghan Human Rights Foundation, Mr. Mohammed Asif. Mohammed, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. Sir, I put it to you that Brits watching this programme would absolutely say we have a debt of gratitude to the 1,000-odd Afghans who genuinely served alongside British forces. But when we hear today that 15 out of 16 claims are bogus, then the British sympathy is running dry.
I mean, thank you. That's absolutely not true. And this is just manufactured by the right-wing media and the right-wing institutions somewhere that, those who work with the British forces or American or European or NATO forces, they're bogus, sitting somewhere in the studio or sitting in London and making that derogatory remarks that, Afghans are bogus. That's absolutely not true. Those who stand with this is not the fault of Afghans. Let's look at the 20 years of occupation of Afghanistan. When Britain and NATO and America went to Afghanistan, destabilized the entire country. People move from one place to another place. And now when the same very people who are the victims of the Taliban bombs, Daesh, Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and of course the war crimes committed by Britain, Australia, and America in Afghanistan, the very same people who are coming here, they are told you're bogus. This is really, really sad, and this is really, really disgusting.
So, Mohammed, what's disgusting, actually, is the fact if there are bogus claims here, and we are in a situation, you may not like this, but it's a fact, that Afghans or 20... Listen to me. You've had your chance. Listen, please, sir. Listen, please, sir. Afghans are 22 times more likely to commit violent sex crimes in Britain versus Brits as across the population. We have a right... We have a right... Listen to me. We have a right, as a nation, to have a say who comes into our country and who should be kicked out.
No, listen to me. For the past 45 years, we are, at war. Show me one particular Afghan in Britain who is involved in terrorism, and I can leave Britain and I can move away somewhere else. If you prove that an Afghan is proven in the court of law for act of terrorism, because
what about those in prison for sex crimes? What about those in prison for rape? Now, I'm not saying that they're all like that, but I'm saying a percentile certainly are. We have a right to control who comes into our country.
No, I know. The country law should be respected. Anyone who commits the law, There is a law in this country, there is rule and regulation, and they should be punished. Anyone, regardless of race, religion, country, backgrounds. It doesn't matter whether you are Afghan, Brit, Scottish, or whoever, you should be punished for the crimes you have committed. But you cannot brush everyone, bogus, because let things that think about the 20 years
15 out of 16 bogus,
where hundreds of thousands of Afghans were killed in this illegal war in Afghanistan, killed by NATO, by Daesh, Islamic State, the Taliban, and suddenly after 20 years of failed war, you run away from Afghanistan, and now you're blaming all the Afghans for your own failure in Afghanistan.
So when we go there, we colonise, and when we get out, which we should have done, we abandon the country. I put it to you. Now, again, I repeat my initial point. Those who legitimately served and helped Britain, we should protect, but not 15, 16 family members for every individual one. We can't afford it, and we have a right to say no.
If I serve with you, and if I'm coming here and I have wife and children, I cannot abandon my, just use a little bit of logic. If I'm coming to Britain and I have served with you,
one person brought 14 family members.
I have my wife and my children.
It's like a football team.
Do I leave my wife and children to the Taliban? Because I serve with you, I have the right to bring them here.
So do you think that the British society should just take everybody? I mean, everybody they've ever known, their mates, the people they play football with, everybody they've ever known.
Afghanistan is, listen to this, Afghanistan is a population of 40 million. After 40 million, you're allegedly claiming, to be taking maybe 24,000, 30,000, 40,000.
100,000,
Look at the neighboring countries. Look, when you say that we are invaded by migrants, you never know what an invasion looks like. I know what an invasion looks like. When
a lot of people think we know what it looks like too.
You are not, because you have destabilized the country, you occupied the country, you have moved the population, from one corner to the other, and those who have served with you, they have every right to come to Britain and claim asylum or given sanctuary because, it is because of the British who are in Afghanistan.
Okay, so...
and those people who are at risk, they have every right to come to this country and claim asylum.
OK, we have to leave it there. Thank you for a robust and fair debate. That's the director of the Afghan Human Rights Foundation, Mohammed Asif. Now, let's get back to a bit of calm in the studio. Chris Hope, you've got your excellent Choppers podcast, this time sat down with the former Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt.
That's right. And it sort of sets up this summer of speculation about taxes and what might go up in the budget. Yet again, like Groundhog Day, we'll be going through the similar speculation for viewers and listeners in coming weeks as MPs leave Parliament on Tuesday for their 6-week summer break. Jeremy Hunt, of course, was the Tory Chancellor for those period under Liz Truss, and then, of course, for a longer period under Rishi Sunak. He says to us in terms that she will have to put up taxes this autumn. Rachel Reeves, his successor as a Chancellor, and he regrets, I think, that the Tories didn't make more of their attempt to bring down taxes. But let's have a listen to what he says now. Will Rachel Reeves put up taxes this autumn?
I fear she will, yes. I think it's going to be a disastrous thing for the economy if she does, because, what many of us are worried about is that we're going to end up in this doom loop of ever higher taxes and ever lower growth. My biggest failure as Chancellor was not to get across the message that we really did want to reduce tax. And, we had to put them up to pay for not just the COVID costs, but also we had the energy shock, all that help with people's fuel bills. But we wanted to, as soon as we could, to get back on a path of bringing them down. And I'm not sure, in honesty, that people actually believe that. I think they thought, Labour, Tories, they will put up your taxes. Yeah. And that may have contributed to the result that we ended up getting.
Jeremy Hunt may have contributed. I think it did contribute, that failure to bring down taxes.
And a lot of people would say, well, you raised taxes to the highest since the World War II. 25 tax rises under the Tories in the previous term, according to the Labour Party. It's a bit rich, isn't it, to have to say taxes are going to go when that's what the Tories do.
I think what's happening in politics is we forget the amount of money spent by the last Tory government on both COVID and the energy shock from the Ukraine invasion by Russia. £500 billion spent in about 4 years. We have to pay for that, and now the taxes are going up. Watch out for pension contributions and maybe taxes on self-employed. Those areas look like they could be in the crosshairs of Rachel Reeves in the Treasury. Bit
of a curveball throw here, Chris. I'm just waiting for Mark White to come up. Do you think all that money that was splurged during COVID, and by the way, Sir Keir Starmer wanted to spend more. He wanted lockdowns sooner, harder and longer. It's stuck in a financial hole that our grandchildren will probably still be paying off. Do you think the COVID inquiry never asked the right questions? Why did you spend so much money and put the country into such an economic lockdown without ever facing the consequence?
I think it's fair to say, certainly in the early days of the COVID inquiry, it was going after targets, political targets. Let's embarrass Boris Johnson, let's embarrass Matt Hancock, let's embarrass Dominic Cummings, looking at WhatsApp. It's almost the kind of froth of the approach towards that challenge, which is unlike anything faced by any politicians for the past 100 years. But the detail, the choices made, the money spent, that's where I think we need to hold a reckoning.
You're absolutely right, Chris Hope. Superb stuff as ever. I'll see you again in the next hour, my friend. But let's move on now, because French police have clashed with hundreds of migrants on the coast near Dunkirk. And some migrants were seen throwing petrol bombs. That's police officers who moved in to disperse them as large groups attempted to cross the channel to the UK in the early hours of this morning. Well, let's cross now and speak to GB News' home and security editor, Mark White, who's there perched up on the white cliffs of Dover. Mark White, bedlam on the other side of the channel, and the numbers continue to pour in on your side.
Yeah, absolutely is. And I think it speaks to the growing levels of violence that we've seen on the other side of the channel that the French police are having to contend with, but also local people in the areas around Calais and Dunkirk in particular, who are seeing very significant levels of violence. Every time the police intervene to try to stop any of these boats, it descends into chaos. And that's what we saw overnight, last night into the early hours this morning. Several hundred migrants that had gathered on Gravelines Beach, which is near Dunkirk, with a view to trying to get across the English Channel today. Hundreds of others have made that journey today, by the way, but these migrants were prevented in that effort, and it turned violent. There were fires that were lit in and around the shoreline. Petrol bombs were thrown at those French police officers in riot gear who moved in with tear gas and CS spray to try to disperse the migrants. So it could have been up to 300 migrants at Gravelines Beach that were trying to get across today. The numbers would have been far greater, those coming across today. As it is, Martin, we may be looking at about 350 who have crossed today. Already a couple of hundred are either here, or a Border Force vessel is on the route of trying to get them here to Dover. There's another couple of boats that have left and en route as well. We should say that a Border Force vessel absolutely packed to the gunwales, 2 migrant boatloads on board, is due in here 30 to 40 minutes time. Hopefully, Martin, we can bring you those images live when that vessel arrives here.
And Mark White, it's got to be said, absolutely, they're throwing Molotov cocktails in Dunkirk. What kind of quality control are we getting of people coming into our country? They're pouring in. We have no idea who they are. Mark White, once again, astonishing imagery. The best in the business. We'll come back to you later in the show. Thank you very, very much. Now, coming up next, under Keir Starmer's EU reset, it's emerged that Britain will be a rule taker and have to pay millions of pounds to Brussels for the first time since Brexit. Are we slowly rejoining the European Union? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, debate time is 3:27. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Britain is to be made to pay into the European Union's budget as the price for Keir Starmer's reset deal with Brussels. And new EU documents demand financial contributions to the bodies that manage food standards and also the carbon markets rules that Britain will have to follow. It was also revealed that Britain will be blocked from making any changes or amendments to those rules, making the UK, quite simply, a rule taker and not a rule maker with Brussels. And that was the precise opposite of what Brexit was meant to do. Let's speak now with the leader of the Rejoin EU party, Richard Morley. Richard, always a pleasure to have your company. You've got to be delighted, because step by step we're creeping back into the European Union.
As always, a great pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me. Well, if you think I'm delighted with Keir Starmer's approach, and frankly, I'm not, because he's not going around it in the right way. As you so correctly say, we seem now to be paying for something without actually getting the benefits fully of what we're paying for. And I completely agree with you that the Starmer approach is inadequate. However, the real thing that he should have done, of course, was to begin the process of rejoining the EU. And then we would be paying our payments and receiving the benefits fully of what we're paying for. He hasn't done that because, of course, the Brexit referendum prevents him from doing so. And yet, of course, we know that at least 56% of the population are supporting rejoining. And when the vote is now given to 16-year-olds, I can firmly predict that 56% will turn into more like 60 or 65%. There is a majority now to rejoin the EU, and we should damn well get on with it.
Well, the problem with that, of course, is that Sir Keir Starmer would need to be in power for that to happen. And that, at the moment, isn't looking like much of a possibility. Of course, there's a long way to go before the next general election. I digress, Richard Morley. Are you happy with the notion, you probably are, again, that we've seen two European leaders now come to Britain inside 1 week? Emmanuel Macron, Brits were sold a lie over Brexit, a decision he called deeply regrettable. And Chancellor Friedrich Merz yesterday, I personally deplore deeply the UK's decision to leave the European Union, both, of course, surrounded by EU flags. They haven't got the memo, have they? We've left.
Well, of course, it does show how much France and Germany are willing and wanting us to rejoin. There is no desire in Europe to keep Britain out. They want the opposite. They believe, as I do, that standing together as nations, working together in close unity and harmony is the only way forward in this century. We cannot hope to be successful going it alone. And the crises that you've just been talking about on your programme just now over immigration is a signal of how difficult it is for Britain to be a sovereign nation in this unified world, where basically being a sovereign nation means, well, Europe has no responsibility really to stop these people coming over. And they damn well should do. And were we to be in the EU...
They never had any responsibility to stop people coming here before Brexit, and a pitiful handful were ever returned to Schengen area countries when we were in the European Union. Richard Morley, that is one of the great Remainer myths. The idea we could deport people willy-nilly to the EU before Brexit is a total fantasy.
Yes, but the world has changed a great deal since Brexit. As you know, the immigration crisis that we now face is significantly higher than anything we ever even conceived of at the time of Brexit.
Same in Germany, Greece, Italy. They're in the EU.
Indeed.
Is that because of Brexit?
We are faced with not just a European problem, but it's a problem that many other countries are facing as well. Of course, America has the same issue. We have got to do something that... Well, it's an international problem which Brexit has not helped us with. If we were to be part of a bigger unit, then that burden of mass immigration would not only be shared, but we could take widespread precautions as a greater unit to prevent it from happening. Of course, I share your concerns about immigration, and I do think that a lot of things have got to be done to control this situation. But I don't think that being a sovereign nation separate from the EU is the best way of doing it.
Okay, Richard Morley, we began this conversation as friends. We part as friends. I always appreciate your company. I really do. Thanks for joining us, the leader of the Rejoin EU Party, Richard Morley. You're a scholar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, including a violent protest erupted at an asylum seeker hotel in Epping last night in Essex, after a resident was accused of 3 sex attacks on 2 schoolgirls. But here's the point. Was this antagonised by people brought in from outside the area? Was the far left guilty of stoking things up? I'll be joined by the local MP for his thoughts next. But first, here's your latest news headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 3:30. The child who died in a school crash. In Minehead, a coach crash on Thursday was a 10-year-old boy. Avon and Somerset police said 21 others were taken to hospital following the collision yesterday afternoon. 6 children and 3 adults remain in hospital. More than 23,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel this year as hundreds more made the crossing this morning. People smuggling gangs have taken advantage of thick fog in the English Channel today to launch multiple small boats towards UK waters. 2 arrests have been made at anti-immigration protests overnight at a hotel in Epping. Essex police said earlier that 1 police officer sustained minor injuries after protesters clashed with police. Police say they'll take no further action over rap group Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury. Officers said they'd taken advice from the Crown Prosecution Service and decided there's not enough evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction for any offence. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. There's more news from me at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. The rest of today will continue to feel humid with the heat building in the south and the east, but that may well spark off some torrential thunderstorms later on. It's a messy picture across the UK at the moment. We've got low pressure to the northwest, a weather front bringing an area of cloud and some showers into the north and the west. But ahead of it, remarkably hot across East Anglia as well as the southeast of England, temperatures into the low 30s, sparking some thunderstorms across northeast England initially, and then we're watching this development over northern France as it pushes north into southeast England during the early hours, and that could bring a month or even 2 months worth of rain in under 3 hours for parts of London and the southeast, hence the amber thunderstorm warning, which is valid from 4 a.m. until 11 a.m. And it's this area of thundery rain moving north, intense rainfall rates falling onto dry ground. Further west, muggy start to the day, but some sunny spells, although quite a few showers into the west, a fresher feel for northwestern parts of the UK. But we keep the high temperatures in the east and the southeast, although moderated, of course, by these outbreaks of rain that are increasingly spreading north across central and eastern parts of the UK. So many places will start off Saturday with heavy bouts of wet weather and some hail, lightning around as well. But the main focus for the heavy rain moves north as Saturday continues into southern and eastern Scotland by the end of the day. Where it's raining, of course, it's not going to feel particularly hot, but elsewhere we keep the humid feel where the sun does come through across central parts. It is going to feel very warm once again. Then heading into Saturday night, further spells of rain into the northeast. Another batch of wet weather and potential thunderstorms moves into the southwest along with brisk winds. It stays very showery into the start of next week.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Significant disruption on the M6 northbound between junctions 27 and 28 is causing a 1-hour delay due to a collision, with all lanes closed. The A92 southbound is restricted between Red House roundabout and Chapel interchange because of a broken down vehicle. Proceed with caution. Congestion on the A43 northbound between junctions with the A413 and the A5 in Northamptonshire causes a 15-minute delay. Surrey's M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 10 and 9 faces lane closures. And on the trains, expect disruption on the Elizabeth line between Reading and London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:37. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on this Friday afternoon here on GB News. Now, Essex police have confirmed that 2 arrests were made during an anti-migration protest in Epping last night. And the arrest came after a 38-year-old Ethiopian migrant was charged with 3 counts of sexual assault. Now, he denies the offences ahead of his trial next month. And number 10 says it is important that communities know that we are working to reduce numbers of asylum hotels. It is important that legitimate protest does not cross over into something else. Let's cross now and speak with the MP for Epping Forest, and that is Mr Neil Hudson. Neil, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. Concerning scenes on the streets of Epping last night, can I start with the notion, first of all, that some parts of the media are calling your constituents far right?
Well, thank you for having me on your programme. As you say, these are deeply upsetting and disturbing scenes that we are seeing in Epping. The scenes in Epping last night are very upsetting, something that we just don't want to see in Epping, that we very much fully respect the right for people to peacefully protest. But violence like this has no place, and this is not Epping. This is not us. This is not what we stand for.
Okay.
We've had some we've got a tinderbox situation in Epping just now. We've had these 3 alleged sexual assaults last week of school-age children, and as you can imagine, tensions are running high. But last night, what we saw was people coming in from outside Epping, very much wanting to have a violent reaction. And can I first of all just say thank you so much to the police who, in protests like this, they put themselves in harm's way to keep us safe. And we have had reports, as we've seen with the sites last night, of injuries to police officers and damage to vehicles. This sort of activity has no place when we've got a community really nervous and upset.
I want to push you on that previous point because you're a politician. You answer like a politician. The media are calling your constituents far right for being very, very upset, legitimately, some people might say, for there being sexual assaults, allegations of crime in your area. They're not far right, are they? They're right. They have legitimate concerns. And can I also put it to you that you talk about outside influencers coming in to stoke this up? You're right. And they were from the left wing. It was organised people from out of town that came in. They were escorted by the police from the station into the heart of this protest, and that is when things got nasty. Neil Hudson, can I implore you to ask those people from outside of your area to stay away?
Absolutely, absolutely. These people need to stay away from our small community. We are a small, close-knit town. We have an asylum hotel in this constituency now that the previous government was able to close in April of last year. The Labour government has, against all the advice, opened this hotel up. And now we've had these alleged sexual assaults last week that have really upset the local community. We have mums and dads, we have grandparents, we have a school nearby as well. People are genuinely very, very upset and fearful. And equally so, we must consider we have a vulnerable population of residents within the hotel of asylum seekers. Now, I know very much that there are church groups and local community groups that are looking out for these vulnerable people, but this hotel is not in the right place. It's not being adequately resourced. I've had urgent meetings with the Home Office and raising accountability issues and safeguarding issues. I've called for an urgent meeting with the Home Secretary, and we're calling for this hotel to be immediately closed so that our community can be safe and we can make sure that Epping can get back to normal.
But Neil Hudson, we've covered this ground so often before in many, many constituencies, and the Home Office simply seems oftentimes, almost always, in fact, to turn a blind eye. Oh, we must accept people who come from overseas and they get the full protection of the state, they get 4-star hotels, they get free board and lodgings. Well, it's not free, it's paid for by British taxpayers. Do you think you've got any chance of getting this move, or will the Home Office simply say, well, tough, you've got to take your fair share?
We've got to put pressure on this Labour government who came into office saying that they were going to smash the gangs and address this issue. But on their watch, the small boat crossings have gone up by about 48%. There are 3,000 more people in the asylum hotel system now than there were when they came into power. They've got to get a grip on this issue, but they also have to listen to local communities. If these hotels are in the wrong place and people are actually being potentially allegedly assaulted, and we have local communities really, really struggling and distressed for community safety and cohesion, I'm urging our community to stay focused and united and calm. As you have said in your introductory piece, we have people from outside trying to whip this up and cause violence and attacking the police who are trying to keep us safe. I'm urging the Home Secretary, the Home Office, to get a grip of this issue, to close this hotel instantly and actually get a grip on this asylum situation, because they are letting it get out of hand and it's making it a risk for local communities.
Neil Hudson, can I ask you about those outsiders? Because I've seen very, very strong evidence. Well, look, that these are politically motivated socialist activists from London who are not just coming to your constituency, but they're going all over the country. They seem to revel in stoking up tensions. And do you think now this is taking on the feeling of an orchestrated, organised agitation movement that is causing big problems locally for MPs like you?
I think we need to be really, really careful. As you say, that there are organised people being, protested in. There was a call to meet at Epping Tube Station yesterday evening, and I'm getting regular briefings and I'm liaising very closely with the police about this. We need to be very careful what we say, but what I'm urging the local community we need to make sure that our local community stays together, is not divided, and these people from either sides of the debate who are coming in trying to have violent protests, that has no place in a peaceful protest. And we've got to make sure this is a very dangerous, risky situation, and we've got to make sure that the police can keep the community safe. And actually, I just urge people to stay away from Epping if they are coming here to actually cause violence and unrest and unsettle. I have very distressed constituents, very upset constituents who are very nervous, very frightened. They're wanting their town to go back to how it was. And we need to make sure that these external influences are stopped. And anyone that is breaking the law and making these protests turn into violent protests when they're smashing up police vans, injuring police officers, they need to be brought to justice. But we've got to make sure that the government acts quickly and decisively so that we can address this issue.
Neil Hudson, on that, we can absolutely agree. Outsiders have no part in any of these protests, whatever their political allegiances. But I put it to you,
Violence has no part in the protest.
Yeah, last night's protest, though, went in two parts. The first part was locals, mothers, children, parents who were concerned, and things rapidly changed when the outsiders came in. That is when it kicked off. I put it to you, the external influence coming in need to stay away.
Absolutely, absolutely. That people have a right to peaceful protest and make their point, and the police are very happy to facilitate that and make sure that goes off peacefully. But if people come from outside deliberately to cause violence and mayhem, they should stay away. Firmly, they should stay away. We've got to. This is a tinderbox situation, and I'm urging people just.
Should they be stopped from even being? Should they be stopped, for example, from even being allowed to get off the train in your constituency if they're specifically coming to Constable? Why are they even allowed into your postcode?
I can't comment. I mean, I don't know if you've caught the train out to Epping. It's the end of the line on the central line. To police that, I'm not going to comment on what the police can and can't do in terms of that. But we've got to try and take some of the heat out of this. But what we need to do is to make sure that the Home Secretary is listening. She needs to get a grip of this issue, and we need to get this hotel closed quickly. And I urge you to act soon.
OK, thank you for being so frank with us. I really do appreciate your time. Thank you very much. That's the MP for Epping Forest, Neil Hudson. Now for Insurgent, some holiday sun. Also, don't forget, they are just allegations of that hotel, and we in no way condone any violence at any of these hotels. Let's calm everything down. Now for Insurgent, some holiday sun. Here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Lots of blue skies and strong hot sunshine around the Mediterranean at the moment. There's going to be a bit of a breeze blowing, however, this weekend, especially for Crete and Cyprus. Maybe one or two showers inland across Turkey, but again, most of the coast's dry and sunny. Same goes for Italy and much of southern Spain, along with the Balearics and the Canaries. Also set fair. Temperatures in Tenerife close to 30 Celsius. We'll have highs here of 29 for the next few days and similar temperatures in Barcelona.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Bishopsthorpe Road, it's on the verges of York city centre, and it was once crowned the best high street in Britain, but there is a new issue facing it, and that is?
The cost of parking. It's increased by, wait for it, 500%.
And they've done that overnight without consultation, right?
Yeah.
So it now costs £4.85 an hour, right? And what's that going to do? It's going to stop people visiting.
It's going to drive people away.
Anna, it's not easy to get around York, I have to say. One road in, one road out type thing, congestion around the place. Yes, there's car parking spaces, but goodness me, I mean, this is obviously very, very controversial, and these are the sort of taxes, indirect taxes, that come on all of us. It's now going to cost us so much money just to get there, just to see there. Tell us more.
That's right, Eamon, and the City of York Council have introduced this to try and reduce congestion, to try and get more people on buses.
Extra things like this just mean that it's been unprepared, but also it just adds up, and it then stops you from doing other things. And then, for people that haven't got enough money to eat and to look after their kids and things, I think it's disgusting, to be honest.
Thank you for speaking with us this morning, Karen. Really appreciate it. The council say that they are going to review these charges. They're going to look at them every 3, 6 and 9 months and start engaging with the local community to just see how fair these prices are.
OK, Anna Riley.
Where are you parked this morning, Anna?
We're parked here, £22.50 it's cost us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 10 to 4. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, a Labour activist given an MBE for services to integration and cohesion demanded that Muslims in Rotherham who refused to boycott the police following the town's grooming scandal should themselves be boycotted by the Muslim community. Well, new footage of Mobeen Hussain, obtained exclusive by Charlie Peters at GB News, shows him making a fiery speech, launching the boycott to a cheering crowd made up almost entirely of men. Well, I'm joined in the studio by that man now, Charlie Peters. Charlie, another cracking exclusive. Over to you.
Well, Martin, in 2015, when Mobeen Hussain called this boycott, Rotherham was a disunited and a struggling town. People were seriously angry about that grooming scandal, and there were severe community splits. Now, at the time, he said that this boycott was caused by the murder of an 81-year-old British Pakistani man in Rotherham. But also, he told the BBC very soon after this boycott was called that first and foremost he was doing it because South Yorkshire Police, he said, had spread pernicious lies that they had failed to investigate grooming allegations due to accusations and fears of accusations of racism. South Yorkshire Police has actually never said that. So Hussain's group, British Muslim Youth, they said that this allegation was used to scapegoat Muslims for the police's failure. This was reported last week by the Sunday Times, and in a statement soon after that piece was published, Mobeen Hussain said that the boycott had absolutely nothing to do with the grooming gang investigations, and he headed that statement, "Enough of the lies." Well, we can now reveal footage of Mobeen Hussain where he referred to individuals being boycotted.
If anybody from the Muslim community does not bring in this policy, we boycott them too. Any Muslim organisation, let's make it better, any Muslim individual or institution in Rotherham that do not adhere to this policy of disengagement will also be boycotted by the Muslim community. We call upon that.
Well, he called off this boycott 2 days later. Cooler heads prevailed, but it did have a lasting impact on the politics in Rotherham. The leader of the council, Chris Reid, refused to meet him soon after. Now, Hussain said that the boycott was due to the incompetent engagement policy used by South Yorkshire Police, and his representatives have claimed to us that he later clarified that the boycott was only targeting organisations, not individuals. However, I can't find any evidence of that. Now, Robert Jenrick has called into question this MBE for cohesion. He said his pernicious rants set back community cohesion. His award is a sick joke on the British public. So in a statement, Mobeen Hussain said that the peaceful boycott in 2015 related to a specific issue between the police and the Muslim community in the wake of a brutal murder. My record in countering extremism and terrorism from the age of 14, which has included speaking out unequivocally against grooming gangs, including those who are men of Pakistani origin, leading the first demonstration against such criminals and working to break barriers between intrafaith and interfaith communities, speaks for itself. He said, "I have a distinguished track record in building bridges for communities, and I was delighted to be offered an MBE. I look forward to working on community cohesion and interfaith understanding going forward."
Charlie Peters, another cracking exclusive. Thank you very much, as ever, for your continued work in this area. Now, coming up, could left-wing lawyers force another 100,000 Afghans to the UK? That's next.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. The rest of today will continue to feel humid with the heat building in the south and the east, but that may well spark off some torrential thunderstorms later on. It's a messy picture across the UK at the moment. We've got low pressure to the northwest, a weather front bringing an area of cloud and some showers into the north and the west. But ahead of it, remarkably hot across East Anglia as well as the southeast of England, temperatures into the low 30s, sparking some thunderstorms across northeast England initially, and then we're watching this development over northern France as it pushes north into southeast England during the early hours, and that could bring a month or even 2 months worth of rain in under 3 hours for parts of London and the southeast, hence the amber thunderstorm warning, which is valid from 4 a.m. until 11 a.m. And it's this area of thundery rain moving north, intense rainfall rates falling onto dry ground. Further west, a muggy start to the day, but some sunny spells, although quite a few showers into the west, a fresher feel for northwestern parts of the UK. But we keep the high temperatures in the east and the southeast, although moderated, of course, by these outbreaks of rain that are increasingly spreading north across central and eastern parts of the UK. So many places will start off Saturday with heavy bouts of wet weather and some hail, lightning around as well. But the main focus for the heavy rain moves north as Saturday continues into southern and eastern Scotland by the end of the day. Where it's raining, of course, it's not going to feel particularly hot, but elsewhere we keep the humid feel. Where the sun does come through across central parts, it is going to feel very warm once again. Then heading into Saturday night, further spells of rain into the northeast, another batch of wet weather and potential thunderstorms moves into the southwest along with brisk winds. It stays very showery into the start of next week.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Motorists on the A92 should be cautious due to a broken down vehicle between Red House Roundabout and Chapel Interchange, causing delays. Congestion on the M4 westbound stretches from junction 48 near Hendy to junction 49 at Pont Abraham. A collision on the M6 northbound in Lancashire between junctions 27 and 28 closed all lanes, causing significant delays. Surrey's M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 10 and 9 has roadworks affecting one lane. And on the trains, disruptions impact the Elizabeth line between Reading and London Paddington and various Great Western Railway routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air, gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good afternoon. It's 4 p.m. on Friday and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. Got some breaking news for you now. Let's get straight to GB News' home and security editor Mark White, who is live in Dover. Mark, I believe a significant boat is coming in. Over to you.
The migrant crisis unfolding before our very eyes here at Dover as the Border Force vessel Ranger rounds the harbour wall into the western jetfoil area of Dover Harbour, where Border Force has its migrant processing facilities. And this Border Force vessel is absolutely overloaded with migrants. It's taken two full boatloads of migrants from the English Channel, bringing them here to that processing facility where they will be checked over, disembark, of course, the vessel, and then be formally arrested, fingerprints taken, and all the usual things that happens to these migrants who cross, of course, to the UK illegally in the first instance, before they then go on to claim asylum and enter our asylum process. And then, of course, we know what happens with migrants either sent to hotels up and down the country or to local authority or shared housing accommodation around the country. But this is another significant day in the English Channel, with 200 migrants already here in the UK from earlier today, boatloads that were picked up in the Channel. And as we speak to you, another 2 migrant boatloads have just left France. They've come out, we believe, from a river tributary near Dunkirk, near the beach of Gravelines. Now, Gravelines is important because it is a flashpoint where French police and migrants have been clashing again overnight. Violent scenes erupting with French police officers coming under a hail of missiles, stones, sticks, Molotov cocktails thrown at them by migrants who were being disrupted as they were attempting to get across the English Channel. So that could have been another 300, Martin, who would have been on that journey across to the UK today. As it is, by the close of play today, we still may be looking at 350 who have successfully traversed the English Channel.
And Mark White, I mean, these scenes are just incredible. Once again, hats off to the cameraman down there. No other news channel is doing this. This is boatloads of illegal immigrants landing at Dover in real time. And Mark White, I put it to you, it makes an absolute mockery of the political position. Successive European Union leaders, Macron and Friedrich Merz, coming to the UK, promising to do everything they can to clamp down on this human smuggling trade. Sir Keir Starmer touting his one in, one out deal. There's none going out, Mark White. They're all coming in.
Well, they are. The numbers are just continuing to grow. And today, very significantly, we passed 23,000 migrants who crossed the English Channel illegally since the beginning of the year. Now, that number is important because we're at 23,000 and we're only just part way through July. We're only just into what is traditionally the very busy summer months in the Channel of July, August, September, even into October, all very busy months where on a good day 1,000 are crossing in flat calm conditions. So at 23,000 already, without a doubt, last year's total for the entire year of 36,000 will be passed within the next 6 weeks, and then we're going into record territory. The biggest number who ever crossed the English Channel since this crisis began was 45,000, almost 46,000 who crossed the Channel in 2022. We are absolutely on course to smash that record by the end of this year. What's happening now, Martin, is the Border Force vessel Ranger tying up, just making sure that it's secure before those migrants will be taken off, and they'll be taken off in groups of 10 up the gangway to the left of the images that you're seeing. There's a gangway there that they go up, and then basically they head down into the area where lots of security Border Force personnel are waiting for them as they go through the process there at that point. Now, our producer Chris, who is just supreme at being able to guess these things, reckons that there could be at least 120 migrants on this particular boat alone, this one Border Force vessel, 120 migrants. 120 migrants who will have to be housed in a hotel or multiple other accommodations right around the country, with all of the added tensions that we know that adds in communities right across this nation of ours.
Mark White, I put it to you, as well as the sheer quantity. When we look at that incredible footage you sent to us earlier, we'll try and get it again later in the show, of Molotov cocktails flying at the gendarme in France there. There's also an issue of quality control. We have no idea who is on those boats. We have no idea their criminal past. We do know that they'll be shoved through the processing plant and put into asylum hotels, perhaps in a town near you, or a multiple occupancy house in a town near you. And Mark White, this is not a government in control of its borders.
Well, certainly not looking at these images, and I think hopefully you can see the gangway there now, where the first of those migrants are being offloaded from the Border Force vessel Ranger up the gangway and down into the processing centre. As I say, for control purposes, they do it in groups of 10. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Martin. There's no way you can look at these images day after day, as we do on this channel, documenting these important days of large numbers coming across the channel, and say that we are in a position where there's anything but a lack of control in our border security here, because it seems whatever the government tries to do, they are powerless to stop these hundreds and hundreds of migrants still coming across the channel, aided and abetted by the people smugglers, who are very adept now at being able to source their small boats from these backstreet factories in China. They're then taken through Turkey into Europe, and as we heard with the visit of Chancellor Merz yesterday, they land up in Germany. They're locked up in garages, lockups in Germany, in the city of Essen, Dusseldorf and other locations in Germany, and the German government does absolutely nothing about it, because they have no law that says it is illegal to be part of a people smuggling conspiracy like this, when it's a country like the UK that's involved, not an EU nation. So they're changing their law to recognise that. But Martin, they're only going to change their law in 6 months' time. Yeah. How many more thousand will have come up this gangway like these migrants in the course of those 6 months?
Simply incredible footage in real time. That well-worn gangplank into Britain from those Border Force vessels, now very much feeling like a one-way conveyor belt, non-stop. Yet another red day, and as Mark White just said, another 2 incoming boats still to come in the channel. We can see live pictures there of what appear to be, I don't know if there's any way we can zoom in closer, Mark White, but they appear to be sort of once again ostensibly made up of military-aged men walking up that gangplank into Britain, and a country seemingly powerless to stop this endless tide. Mark White, thank you very, very much, and we'll cross back to you, of course, later in the show there. Live from Dover, unparalleled reporting. I'm joined in the studio by Chris Hope, our political editor. Chris, I want to get some reaction to you from you to that. The public will look at that now and think, this is totally and utterly out of control. We hear tough talk, and to be fair, we heard it from the previous regime. We heard the same tough talk from Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party, and there's no end in sight.
No, the government will be concerned by that in number 10. Earlier today, I asked number 10 at their briefing about the crossings. We thought would be coming today anyway. We had Mark White reporting on them all day. We spotted them in the channel earlier. Number 10 tell us this: we know the challenge we have to take on. We are attacking these gangs and their business model. These criminal cartels have been operating with impunity for years. Labour says, with some justification, that the efforts to get this Rwanda plan going under the last Tory government meant that the eye was taken off the ball of tackling these gangs. So this government's idea is stop the gangs or smash the gangs.
The numbers are more than 40% up.
They are.
So their strategy isn't working.
It's not working, and they say give us time. There'll be record numbers almost certainly on that trending, as Mark White was saying, this year. Some would say that the Rwanda plan, while criticised by Labour, was anecdotally working. We were told by reporters for other newspapers it was stopping people crossing from northern France into the UK just before the general election in May last year, and pushing some migrants into Southern Ireland, of course, from Northern Ireland. So was it working? We don't know. We'll never know. For 2 days after the election, Sir Keir Starmer axed the plan.
Chris, a lot of people watching this show will ask the question, do they actually understand how big a problem this is? Or are they tied to the idea of people fleeing war, or that kind of Lineker type approach? Are these people fleeing war zones? Need our compassion? Do they understand? I don't think the Conservatives did, and it sunk them. This can sink the Labour Party. Do they get it?
Looking at the polls, they must understand it. It ranks at the top with the National Health Service and the economy as one of the top 3 issues that bothers and concerns voters. It seemed to be jumping in the queue. The idea that David Cameron had, taking migrants out from refugee camps in Syria and then flying them here if they should be here, and securing our border against those people who came across on the trains and on the ferries, that worked. It's a matter of fair play and joining the queue. Yes, we do as a country want to take in migrants if they should be here, but not ones who are paying thousands of pounds to people smugglers to get here. Yes, they get here, but there are occasional misspeaks, notably when a minister talked about it's mainly women and children on those boats. I think you can see from here, even from this shot on screen now on GB News, that's not, well, certainly not children, and probably not women too.
Yeah, when Darren Jones said it was mainly women and children, I don't know what images he's looking at, but he's certainly not looking at these images you can see live on your screen now there from Mark White and his team up at Dover, down there on the docks. That gangplank, one-way traffic once again on another red day, and 2 more incoming boats. There's a feeling of this being a non-stop human tide. Chris Hope, thank you. Stick with us because I want to get your comments on this next story as well, of the similar ilk, to be honest, because the ongoing Afghan data breach cover-up, as lawyers are now seeking to use human rights laws, of course, to force the British government to bring tens of thousands of Afghans to the UK after their names were leaked. 100,000 people could make their claim under the ECHR, claiming their rights were breached because they are in danger of reprisals from the Taliban. And meanwhile, it's been revealed that as few as 1 in 16 Afghans identified in the data breach had genuine claims for asylum. That means that 15 out of 16 claims were bogus. And yet the lawyer's response? Well, we need to take in another 100,000. My next guest thinks they've bitten off more than they can chew in this instance, and that is the social policy analyst, Dr. Rakib Hassan. You wrote an excellent article in the Telegraph today. Welcome to the show, by the way. It was a pleasure to have your company. Is this simply a step too far? 15 out of 16 claims, utterly bogus, and the lawyer's response is, well, let's forget about that. But while we're at it, you've got to take in another 100,000.
No, absolutely. And I'd make the point. I think that there'd be many British people who'd be supportive of the idea of Afghans who have genuinely deep links with serving alongside the British Army during the UK's military involvement in Afghanistan to be provided sanctuary on the grounds that they pass their own security and background checks under a well-regimented system, certainly not one of a process of resettlement which is carried out in secret. But what we're talking about here is something quite remarkable. Now, this list of 100,000 Afghans, it's been reported in the Telegraph that for every one genuine claimant, 15 claims are bogus. Yet we have lawyers who are saying that they may well use ECHR provisions to ultimately fight the case for Afghans to be resettled in the UK, even if they have no connections with Britain, or connections which are spurious at best. And I think there'd be many people who'd find that deeply worrying, and they'd find that to be a grave injustice in itself.
Well, Dr. Rakib Hassan, that draws the obvious conclusion. If 15 out of 16 are bogus, and yet these lawyers think we should take them in, they seem to be utilising international treaties to force Britain to take bogus claimants.
Well, I think this is the point here. I think that our human rights architecture in the UK is simply not fit for purpose, because I believe that at the heart of our human rights framework should be the safety and security of UK citizens. And I think that another problem that we have here is that while I don't like the fact that the UK is a member state of a supranational foreign court based in Strasbourg, we have a very serious problem here within our own judiciary, where I feel that UK judges all too often, they ultimately prioritise the rights of foreign nationals, including those who have broken the law, over the collective security of UK citizens. So what I argued for in today's piece in the Telegraph is that we need to reform our human rights architecture. That includes a radical reform of the Human Rights Act, which encourages UK judges to make rulings which are compatible with the European Convention on Human Rights. And we also need to curb the judicial review process. Otherwise, you won't have meaningful national sovereignty when it comes to immigration and asylum. And all too often, you'll ultimately have unelected judges undercutting the decisions of a democratically elected UK government. But crucially, we have to make this point, Martin, is that this would need this kind of major constitutional reform. It needs significant political willpower. And there are far too many people in the UK Parliament at the moment. They prioritise their own legal background. And I think that does include the Prime Minister over prioritising the mainstream preferences of the British electorate when it comes to matters of immigration and asylum.
Dr. Rakib Hassan, final question to you. A lot of people will be listening to this and just thinking laws that were brought in post-World War II to protect legitimate asylum seekers fleeing war zones, Jewish people, they were perfectly fit for purpose then. If we're in a position today where the very same laws are being used to trammel 100,000, if 15 out of 16 of them are bogus, then these laws, they're not working in favour of Britain anymore. They're working against our national interest.
No, absolutely. There's far too many people gaming our asylum system. When we're talking about conventions, international conventions, which came into force back in the 1950s, they haven't been modernised and they haven't kept pace with the growing ease of international human movement and transformative technological change. So it's either that these conventions are modernised or the UK has to reevaluate its relationship with them. In my view, many people argue for the UK's withdrawal from them. But I think crucially, we need to get to grips with our human rights framework so the collective security of UK citizens is put first.
OK, Dr. Rakib Hassan, social policy analyst, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Hope to see you again soon. Chris Hope, quickly back to you. Do you want to have a bit of reaction to that bit there?
Well, just to say that the government does challenge this figure of 100,000 people can come here using ECHR, the Human Rights Act. They say it's a hypothetical claim. They say we will robustly defend our position on legal action and compensation. The Paul Rimmer report this week found it's highly unlikely that just being a name on that spreadsheet is enough to be mean or targeted. So they would challenge that contention that being on that spreadsheet means you've got a right to come here.
Chris, can I quickly ask you, you've worked in political journalism a long time. You've seen disasters come and go. You worked on the expenses scandal. You drove that story. How bad a scandal do you think this is comparatively? I think it's utterly, utterly terrible.
I think we come to terms with how bad it is. I do think at the heart of it, though, is a choice that was made by Conservatives. Do they risk lives, frankly, or bring in the super injunction and do it all in secret for 2 years? Because if they hadn't acted, there would be blood on the hands of these ministers. That's a point made by Grant Shapps today. Of course, he set up the ARR route out of Afghanistan. I think so. It's different because I think it's quite an invidious situation. The cock-up, I'm afraid, was from this member of the government sending the wrong information in the first place to Afghanistan.
OK, back to matters of tax. You've been speaking to the former Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, on Chopper's Pod.
That's right. The big issue this summer, but the MPs go away for their 6-week holiday on Tuesday. The big issue this summer is how on earth we fill what looks like a looming black hole caused by low growth and an inability by this government, as they should do, to deal with this ballooning welfare budget. Where will they tax? Maybe pension contributions, maybe the self-employed. But Jeremy Hunt, the last person in Number 11 Downing Street before Rachel Reeves, he thinks tax rises are inevitable. Here's what he told me for Chopper's Political Podcast.
Will Rachel Reeves put up taxes this autumn?
I fear she will, yes. I think it's going to be a disastrous thing for the economy if she does, because, what many of us are worried about is that we're going to end up in this doom loop of ever higher taxes and ever lower growth. My biggest failure as Chancellor was not to get across the message that we really did want to reduce tax. And, we had to put them up to pay for not just the COVID costs, but also we had the energy shock, all that help with people's fuel bills. But we wanted to, as soon as we could, to get back on a path of bringing them down. And I'm not sure, in honesty, that people actually believe that. I think they thought, oh, Labour, Tories, they will put up your taxes. Yeah. And that may have contributed to the result that we ended up getting.
Jeremy Hunt there, without any exaggeration, saying the problem of not cutting taxes led to that result last July.
25 tax rises under the Tories since 2019. Before the election, I put it to you, we have the highest taxes since World War II. It's a bit rich for Jeremy Hunt to get on his high.
As he said there, £500 billion spent on COVID and the energy shock from Ukraine. The problem with being in government is get on with it, because events start buffeting you and then you lose your record in power.
Chris Hope, superb as ever. See you again in the next hour, my friend. Great stuff. Now, still to come, a violent protest erupted at an asylum seeker hotel in Epping in Essex last night after a resident was accused of 3 sex attacks against 2 local schoolgirls. And next, under Keir Starmer's EU reset, it's emerged that Britain will be a rule taker and have to pay millions of pounds to Brussels. Are we slowly rejoining the European Union? I'll ask arch-Brexiteer Mark Francois MP. He joins me next. It's Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
That is good.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:25 on this Friday afternoon. You're with me, your host, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, Britain is to be made to pay into the European Union's budget as the price for Sir Keir Starmer's so-called EU reset deal. Well, new European Union documents demand financial contributions to the bodies that manage food standards and the carbon market, rules that Britain will have to follow. And it was also revealed that Britain will be blocked from making any changes or amendments to the rules, making the UK, once again, an EU rule taker and not a rule maker. Well, somebody who that's going to get hot under the collar is my next studio guest, the Conservative MP and the arch Brexiteer Mark Francois MP. Of course, I'm still joined by Chris Hope. Mark, am I missing something? I thought we left the EU and we stopped giving Brussels dosh and we stopped dancing to their whip. Here we go again. It's Groundhog Day.
Well, you were right in the three things that you just said, but then Sir Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. And what he is doing here, this is all about trying to rejoin the EU by stealth. Not in one go, not with a referendum, not with a big, clear-cut decision, but by grandmother's footsteps. And you quite rightly mentioned he's making us a rule taker in certain areas. It's a process called dynamic alignment. In pub English, what it means is if once you agree to be bound in those areas, once they move, you have to follow them, regardless of what Parliament thinks. So you're giving away in certain areas sovereignty bit by bit. Parliament used to have a committee called the European Scrutiny Committee. Their role, chaired by the inimitable Sybil Cash, was to be a watchdog for anything like this, anything that came from the EU. They went through it with a fine tooth comb. What did Labour do? Quite cynically, about 6 months ago, they abolished it. And they must have known... They must have had this in mind when they were doing it.
Well,
utterly cynical.
I'll tell you what, Chris Hope, haven't you just had a phone call from a certain Mr. Bill?
Yes, Bill Cash on the phone earlier.
On the phone?
About the removal of his committee, the European Scrutiny Committee, saying it needs to come back. But surely...
Well, actually, if I may, he's got a point. It should now.
Yeah, of course, it did in the old days scrutinise any EU legislation.
Correct, that was the whole point.
Isn't the point, though, that the Labour Party won the election in July, saying they're going to reshape our relationship with the European Union? They won't do their kind of triple lock, if you call it that, on Brexit, freedom of movement, single market or customs union. But they are doing what they said they'd do. And isn't it the point about sovereignty that if this country votes in a party that says it'll do that, they can do it? And if you guys get in the next election on a different prospectus, you can withdraw from that. That's the point of sovereignty, isn't it?
Well, because I understand the concept of having a mandate in a manifesto, but it said reset. It was deliberately that. It didn't say dynamic alignment. It didn't say if we become the government, we will vote, despite the referendum, to go back to being a rule taker. It didn't say we'll surrender a large part of our fishing rights for 12 years, right, for virtually nothing in return. If it had said rule taker, then fair enough, but it didn't. So what he's trying to do, bit by bit, is to take us back in. So it looks as if we'll be paying millions, not billions at this stage. But they've established the principle. One, that we become a rule take from the EU, and two, that we start paying into the EU budget. So, as I said, it's all grandmother's footsteps, and the watchdog in Parliament deliberately shot.
And Mark Francois, the point about these regulatory alignments is that if you try and uncouple them, then you have to then Brussels can kick you on everything. So the point being, there's a net zero trap in this, which aligns Britain to Brussels targets. And if a future government, for example, decided to use more fossil fuels, Brussels could say, well, no, you can't do that because you agreed to regulatory alignment. And then they can have a go at us on all sorts of other areas. So this is a spider's web. It's a trap.
Yes, it's a sort of a Trojan horse, if you want to think of it like that. And, you know, you call it dynamic alignment and people don't quite understand what that means, but they know what being a rule taker means. And it's the same thing. It means that you rejoin that bit of the organisation that can make rules in those areas, even if Parliament disagrees. Look, I sat in Parliament night after night, week after week, watching Starmer, Mr. Second Referendum himself, constantly calling for a second referendum because he couldn't abide the result of the first one, you know, teaming up with anyone he could team up with to try and keep us in the EU at any cost. I saw it with my own eyes. That's why I've always said Keir Starmer remains a Remainer, and he does.
Chris? Is it worth a few million quid if we have a better ability to send or import salads or to send cheese to France? Isn't it worth that price to get the access for these UK companies who want to make money from their biggest market on their doorstep?
Yeah, but I mean, look, we still manage to trade around the rest of the world in many of these products. You know, the reason it's difficult is because the EU make it difficult. They choose to make it difficult, and then they say, well, we can stop making it difficult, providing you, of course, you want to become a rule taker, and of course, you'll have to pay back a bit into the budget. So Starmer goes, yeah, all right then, and then then you're on the hook for exactly the reasons that Martin has said. But you know, here's a man who goes to a negotiation and wants to give in before he's got in the room, right? OK, you know, he surrendered to the train drivers, he surrendered to Mauritius over Chagos, he's surrendering to Gerry Adams over Northern Ireland veterans, and now he's surrendered our fish and these other things to the EU. He's running out of people to surrender to, isn't he?
Do you think it's fair to say, Mark Francois, that a second referendum, you know, Sir Keir Starmer said, Brexit's done, this is something different. It's through the cat flap rather than through the front door?
They would never... Right. If you remember, right up to about a week to 10 days before, I mean, Chris and I were talking about this on a daily basis at the time, the polls showed that Remain was likely to win. And then there was this very late under-the-radar surge, and mercifully Leave won. They'll never take that chance again. They're never going to have a referendum. They'll never ask us a straight question. It's all going to be done, as I said, by grandmother's footsteps. So next year, they'll go for a bit more dynamic alignment in a few more areas. And they'll say, oh, we've still got these 3 red lines, you know, and the following year they'll do a bit more and so on and so forth. And the Committee of Parliament that was specifically there to raise the flag has been deliberately done in. It's as cynical as you can get.
And before you know it, Mark Francois will all be wearing European Union berets.
You speak for yourself, mate.
Mark Francois, always a pleasure. Chris Hope, again, superb. Thank you, gentlemen. And lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including after spiralling violence and 2 murders last year. Revellers at the Notting Hill Carnival this year will be scanned by police facial recognition cameras for the first time. Is this a price worth paying or a worrying slide towards a police state? And also next, a violent protest erupted at an asylum seeker hotel in Epping in Essex last night after a resident was accused of 3 sex attacks on 2 local schoolgirls. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The headlines at 4:30. More than 23,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel this year, as hundreds more made the crossing this morning. People smuggling gangs have taken advantage of thick fog in the English Channel today to launch multiple small boats towards UK waters. 2 arrests have been made at anti-immigration protests overnight at a hotel in Epping. Essex police said earlier that 1 police officer sustained minor injuries after protesters clashed with police. The child who died in a school coach crash in Minehead was a 10-year-old boy. 21 others were taken to hospital following the collision yesterday afternoon. 6 children and 3 adults remain in hospital. No further action will be taken over Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury. Officers said they'd taken advice from the CPS and decided there's not enough evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction for any offence. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at 5 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. The rest of today will continue to feel humid with the heat building in the south and the east, but that may well spark off some torrential thunderstorms later on. It's a messy picture across the UK at the moment. We've got low pressure to the northwest, a weather front bringing an area of cloud and some showers into the north and the west. But ahead of it, remarkably hot across East Anglia as well as the southeast of England, temperatures into the low 30s, sparking some thunderstorms across northeast England initially, and then we're watching this development over northern France as it pushes north into southeast England during the early hours, and that could bring a month or even 2 months worth of rain in under 3 hours for parts of London and the southeast, hence the amber thunderstorm warning, which is valid from 4 a.m. until 11 a.m. And it's this area of thundery rain moving north, intense rainfall rates falling onto dry ground. Further west, muggy start to the day, but some sunny spells, although quite a few showers into the west, a fresher feel for northwestern parts of the UK. But we keep the high temperatures in the east and the southeast, although moderated, of course, by these outbreaks of rain that are increasingly spreading north across central and eastern parts of the UK. So many places will start off Saturday with heavy bouts of wet weather and some hail, lightning around as well. But the main focus for the heavy rain moves north as Saturday continues into southern and eastern Scotland by the end of the day. Where it's raining, of course, it's not going to feel particularly hot, but elsewhere we keep the humid feel where the sun does come through across central parts. It is going to feel very warm once again. Then heading into Saturday night, further spells of rain into the northeast, another batch of wet weather and potential thunderstorms moves into the southwest along with brisk winds. It stays very showery into the start of next week.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Motorists on the A720 eastbound at Old Craighall should be cautious due to a broken down vehicle. M4 westbound between junctions 48 and 49 has delays. On the M11 northbound between junctions 5 and 6, expect around 10 minutes of congestion. The M4 eastbound in South Gloucestershire between junctions 19 and 18 faces delays of up to 50 minutes. M25 anti-clockwise in Surrey has one lane closed between junctions 10 and 9 due to road management. And on the trains, the Elizabeth line between Reading and London Paddington is facing disruptions as are various Great Western Railway routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 4:37 on this Friday afternoon. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, just 3 weeks left to get your entry into our latest Great British Giveaway, with your chance to win an astonishing 54321, 54,321 quid in tax-free moolah. And here's Hayley Sparks with all of the details you need to enter.
We're here at Downhall in Essex to enjoy the finer things in life, and it's your chance to win £54,321 in cash. It's like having an extra £1,000 in your bank account each week for a whole year, which means that you'd be able to indulge in treats whenever you wanted to. That extra cash each week could send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing this year, to enable you to sit back, relax and do nothing. Make sure you don't miss out on our biggest cash giveaway to date.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good at that. And an analysis of data today shows that hundreds of asylum seekers living in taxpayer-funded hotels have been accused of serious crimes, including rape, GBH and robbery. And here to discuss it in the studio with me is the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, welcome to the show. So incredible figures out today for the first time, collated by the Sun newspaper. They've been through the court records in the last 6 months, and they've managed to pick the addresses of known asylum hotels, and they've put the numbers together. Tell us all about them.
Yeah, so the Sun has done fantastic work on this. What they've effectively found that over 100 or so hotels where asylum seekers are known to be being housed currently. Of course, we don't know where all those hotels are because the government won't tell us. There have been 339 cases proceeded against, taken to court for really heinous crimes, including GBH, rape, robbery, serious things that can really upend people's lives and have a long-term impact, not just on the individual that suffers, but on their family and the community as a whole as well. And of course, what we need to realise with this figure is that this is really just the tip of the iceberg. Of course, they've not covered all asylum hotels. A lot of cases of sexual assault, stalking, following and things like that aren't really reported to the police. Bike theft is another one that really is rife in those areas that we see those asylum hotels actually taking place. And then the other point is that this is just covering those in hotels. It's not covering those asylum seekers that are put in those long-term addresses, those long-term houses, which what's known as dispersal accommodation.
And this is actually 50% of known asylum hotels. 105 were logged, but there are 210 in the UK, 32,000 asylum seekers in total. So this is only half of the known people in hotels, and that broader dispersal accommodation, that's about twice as many as the hotel total, right?
Exactly right. It's exactly right.
So this is a small snapshot, but it does give us an insight. 29 sexual crimes, including 7 alleged rapes, 1 proven incident of exposure, and 1 of attempting to engage in sexual communication with a child. A further 64 violent-related offences. As you say, common assault, GBH, ABH, possessing a knife, and even possessing an imitation firearm. It does say, though, that the numbers here are around half as likely, the asylum seekers are around half as likely to appear at a magistrate's courts compared to the general population. What's all that about?
Well, first of all, there shouldn't be a single asylum seeker committing a crime. They should be held in detention facilities until they can be deported if they've come to this country illegally. But the discrepancy there is effectively because a large proportion of those Brits that are going to magistrates' courts are, of course, being hauled there for motoring offences, for those summary motoring offences, for what are probably the smallest end of the crime that can be committed. So unless there's a wholesale illegal migrant driving licence scam that we don't know about, then the sort of comparison there is probably a bit unfair. I think we need to have a further analysis on those prosecution rates for those particular offences, rather than saying across the board that, asylum seekers are less likely to be hauled in front of a magistrate, because Brits are being taken there for other reasons.
And Rob Bates, we have Mark White down at Dover today. We've already seen incredible footage of one boat rolling into Dover Harbour. We believe there are 2 more on the way presently, and we've also seen footage of there being petrol bombs being thrown in Dunkirk towards police. Severe violence on the other side of the channel. So in more broad terms, Rob Bates, this one-way flow of illegal immigrants into Britain, it not only shows no signs of betting, but the numbers are going up.
Exactly. The numbers are going up, and we know now for a fact that those nationalities that are disproportionately represented in those illegal crossings, we're talking Afghanistan and Eritrea being amongst the top 2, are 24 times more likely as a proportion of the population to be convicted for crimes than the British population as a whole. We also know that Afghan nationals as a whole are 22 times more likely to be convicted of sexual offences. Eritrea is up there as well. Those other nationalities, Iran, Iraq, are also in the top 10 of sexual convictions, violent convictions convictions per capita. So there's a real issue here that we have large numbers of individuals, predominantly young men, despite what Labour might say, they are predominantly young men, coming into our country unvetted, unchecked, being dispersed around communities, put next to schools, as well, of course, as we see in parts of the country. And then we're just expected to tolerate this and to not expect there to be ramifications and implications on those communities having to house these individuals. I think what successive governments have allowed to happen really is they've passed the buck onto local communities saying we don't have a clue how to handle this situation, so you're going to have to effectively see your town, your village absolutely transformed for the foreseeable future, and you're going to have to see your children and your elderly relatives put at risk.
And we saw scenes in Epping last night. Rob Bates, of course, there was a violent protest outside one of those asylum hotels. An individual inside, allegedly, 3 sex offences against 2 local schoolgirls. There's a growing sense of frustration amongst the British public. That scenes like this on our screens, Rob Bates, are simply continuing to increase, the boats rolling in, and people simply having no say about where these men are dispersed to.
And that's it. There is a sense of powerlessness now amongst the British public in these communities that have suddenly been expected to just tolerate 200 men more that they don't know anything about, just being dumped on their doorstep with no warning. They're not even given the courtesy of being given forewarning that these individuals are arriving. And you've then got the duplicity of politicians that pretend they're actually addressing this situation with gimmick after gimmick, haven't got a real clue about how to actually address the root causes of what is pulling these individuals to Britain. It is in large part because of our incredibly generous asylum system. It's also because of our judicial system, which is overly cautious interpretation of the ECHR. And people are reaching the point where they think, what can we actually do to enact change? We've tried voting, we've tried showing our frustration during those proper channels. And, you know, obviously you can't condone any violence that descends into law-breaking, but what you have to realise is that people are really at their wits' end and they are not being given a voice when it comes to this issue.
Okay, Rob Bates, I think you're right. Violence is never a good thing. And just to repeat, they are alleged incidents there in Epping. This is the live case going through the courts of law. Rob Bates, the Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control. Always a pleasure to have you in the studio here in Westminster. Thank you very much. Now, coming up next, after spiralling violence and 2 murders last year, revellers at the Hill Carnival will be scanned by police facial recognition cameras for the very first time. Is this a price worth paying, or is it a worrying slide towards a police state? But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Lots of blue skies and strong hot sunshine around the Mediterranean at the moment. There's going to be a bit of a breeze blowing, however, this weekend, especially for Crete and Cyprus. Maybe 1 or 2 showers inland across Turkey, but again, most of the coast's dry and sunny. Same goes for Italy and much of southern Spain, along with the Balearics and the Canaries. Also set fair. Temperatures in Tenerife close to 30 Celsius. We'll have highs here of 29 for the next few days and similar temperatures in Barcelona.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
What stresses you out the most?
Oh, stupid people. Yeah, stupid people. Actually, I'm convinced the world is full of stupid people.
Right, OK. All right, so stupid people.
Why are you looking at me? Why are you looking at me?
No, I actually wouldn't look at you, mate. You're a smart person. But no, honestly, if you were in my life, particularly when you rely on people to do things for you and they just can't see the obvious thing to do sometimes.
Oh, no.
But you have to be very grateful that they are doing things for you.
Yeah, that's...
Ellie, for me, it depends on the mood I'm in. Because if little things happen and I'm not in the right mood, then everything drives me crazy.
Now, that is a very good point. So, micro-stresses.
Is that what it is?
But according to the Daily Mail this morning, 89% of Britons are finding the small stresses is exhausting them the most.
Yeah.
Things like being stuck in traffic.
Yes.
Hate that. The bin bag
I actually
breaking.
don't mind being stuck in traffic.
No, I do. I find it
That's okay.
great on my soul.
Unless it's late, I'm late for something. Although I was stuck for about 3 hours trying to get home yesterday.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
but you see, I don't think those are micro stresses. I think they're major stresses.
Full-on stresses.
That's what the study says,
so listen, don't pass them off as, oh, it's only just stuck in traffic. That's a major thing.
OK,
Yeah.
that's major stress. OK.
Yeah.
It says sometimes it triggers the same exhaustion as a single major life event if you have lots of these in a day. So bin bag breaking as you're taking it out, losing your keys.
That's a major one.
Yeah.
That's major for me.
People who walk slowly. That is so irritating. Forgetting to charge your phone overnight, forgetting to put the bins out, not being able to find an outfit.
You know what I really hate? Really, really grinds my gears?
What?
Is when I either let someone out, and when I'm in the car, I let someone out and they don't say thanks, or I stop and let them cross over and they don't go...
That's irritating.
Then I go...
Well, I tend to agree with you, Paul.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 5. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, police will use facial recognition cameras at the Hill Carnival this year for the first time. Now, reports suggest that officers will be scanning for wanted knife offenders, rapists, robbers and those suspected of serious violent crimes. And, of course, last year saw 8 stabbings resulting in 2 murders and another man was kicked to death. Well, let's now speak with the former police officer and the managing director of the Public Safety Foundation, Oliver Lawrence. Oliver, welcome to the show. There's a feeling amongst the wider general public that the Notting Hill Carnival now is becoming so increasingly violent that the policing operation has to be stepped up. They've gone already for £1 million in extra taxpayer money to beef up the security. Do you think that facial recognition of everybody, not just the criminals there, is a price worth paying?
Well, Martin, thank you for having me on. Yes, Europe's biggest street carnival is fast approaching its appearance this year, and no doubt public order commanders and event holders will be starting to get slightly anxious over what this year's carnival will hold. You know, since 2017, Martin, there's been 54 stabbings and hundreds upon hundreds of arrests made at Carnival, notwithstanding the assaults on police and other emergency service workers. This event costs the taxpayer each year some £15 million. Those figures are astronomical. Policing has got to do something in order to ensure that the event goes ahead safely. So I'm hugely in favour of the deployment of the facial recognition capability. Ultimately, what we want it to do is identify those individuals who come to Carnival to seek to do harm to those that want to participate in the enjoyment that it's there to create. But notwithstanding, that it still remains the Public Safety Foundation's view that Carnival has well outgrown its location at Notting Hill, and organisers and police and government need to consider where it's held in future.
I mean, Oliver Lawrence, people will have reservations, of course, about the police harvesting information, scanning their faces. You know, why should I have my data captured? I'm not a knife criminal. I'm not a rapist. Why should everybody be subjected to this experiment? And will the data be stored? Could it be hacked?
I think, you know, the Met has made it quite clear that, no, the data is not stored. Obviously, those images there are to identify people who are already well known to police. Just the mere presence of this technology being present at the event may deter just some of those nefarious characters who seek to come to Carnival to settle those gang scores, which is what policing wants to avoid completely. So there is a level of sacrifice here which needs to be made amongst the community, ourselves included, that this technology is there to aid us. And ultimately, for those of us that haven't done wrong, that go about our lives doing the right thing, paying our taxes, keeping ourselves to ourselves, we have nothing to worry about. You know, the data that's kept by policing is deleted. Ultimately, it's there to scan individuals and to be able to deploy quickly and promptly to those they identify as being wanted by police. So I'm hugely in favour of it. It's used in a very proportionate manner, and I think it will ultimately keep people in our community safer by identifying those who seek to do our communities harm.
And just before you go, Oliver, I just want to read through some of this incredible crime data from last year. 349 arrests, 2 murders, 8 stabbings, and also 72 for possession of an offensive weapon, 1 firearm, 53 assaults on emergency workers, 61 officers were assaulted, most of them kicked and punched, 33 violent offences, 13 sexual offences. And I put it to you, a lot of people in the area and broader public think, why should this go ahead? And more to the point, why should general taxpayers across London have to pay more money to keep it going? Thank you very much. We have to leave it there. That's the Managing Director of the Public Safety Foundation, Oliver Lawrence. Thank you very much for joining us. Coming up in your next hour, of course, more incredible pictures from the cliffs of Dover. 2 more boats rolling into British harbours. Will we ever smash the gangs? Will we ever stop the boats? Or is this now just a part of modern Britain? That's with me, Martin Daubney on GB News, but now is your weather with Aidan.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. The rest of today will continue to feel humid with the heat building in the south and the east, but that may well spark off some torrential thunderstorms later on. It's a messy picture across the UK at the moment. We've got low pressure to the northwest, a weather front bringing an area of cloud and some showers into the north and the west. But ahead of it, remarkably hot across East Anglia as well as the southeast of England, temperatures into the low 30s, sparking some thunderstorms across northeast England initially, and then we're watching this development over northern France as it pushes north into southeast England during the early hours, and that could bring a month or even 2 months worth of rain in under 3 hours for parts of London and the southeast, hence the amber thunderstorm warning, which is valid from 4 a.m. until 11 a.m. And it's this area of thundery rain moving north, intense rainfall rates falling onto dry ground. Further west, a muggy start to the day, but some sunny spells, although quite a few showers into the west, a fresher feel for northwestern parts of the UK. But we keep the high temperatures in the east and the southeast, although moderated, of course, by these outbreaks of rain that are increasingly spreading north across central and eastern parts of the UK. So many places will start off Saturday with heavy bouts of wet weather and some hail, lightning around as well. But the main focus for the heavy rain moves north as Saturday continues into southern and eastern Scotland by the end of the day. Where it's raining, of course, it's not going to feel particularly hot, but elsewhere we keep the humid feel. Where the sun does come through across central parts, it is going to feel very warm once again. Then heading into Saturday night, further spells of rain into the northeast. Another batch of wet weather and potential thunderstorms moves into the southwest along with brisk winds. It stays very showery into the start of next week.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. A broken down vehicle affects the A720 eastbound at Old Craighall. Heavy congestion is on the M4 westbound from junction 48 Hendy to junction 49 Pont Abraham. The M6 northbound in Lancashire is closed between junctions 27 and 28 due to a collision causing substantial delays. In Worcestershire, a broken down vehicle between junctions 5 and 6 on the M5 southbound resulted in 2 lane closures. The M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 10 and 9 in Surrey has 1 lane closed for road management. And on the trains, there is disruption on the Elizabeth line between Reading and London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
£54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash. So make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
A wonderful good Friday afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, the Afghan asylum scandal worsens by the minute. Today, it's been revealed that 15 of every 16 asylum cases are bogus. And furthermore, human rights lawyers are now licking their lips and threatening to use ECHR rules to force our government to accept an extra 100,000 Afghans. Once again, have the lunatics taken over our asylum system? And a violent protest erupted at an asylum seeker hotel in Epping last night after a resident was accused of 3 alleged sex attacks on 2 schoolgirls, just 8 days after arriving by small boat in the UK. But was the unrest sparked by anti-racists shipped in from outside the area and even given a police escort into the heart of the action? We'll get the latest on this in the show. And under Keir Starmer's so-called EU reset, it's now emerged that Britain will be a rule taker and even have to pay millions of pounds to Brussels for the privilege. Once again, are we slowly rejoining the European Union? And after spiralling violence and 2 murders last year, revellers at the Hill Carnival will be scanned by police facial recognition cameras for the very first time. Is this a price worth paying, or is it a worrying slide towards a police state? And that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. Molotov cocktails flying on the beaches in France. The gendarmes scattering away desperately, trying to maintain law and order on their side of the channel. And yet, once again, the boats come rolling in. At least 1 boat landed already in Dover. We had incredible live footage of that in the past hour. And 2 more are incoming. That well-worn gangplank at Dover now starting to feel very much like a one-way conveyor belt. We were promised a 1 in, 1 out deal. Well, so far, they're all coming in and we're not seeing any going out. Are we once again losing control of our borders? This is now spilling over into protests, into violence outside hotels about the fact there are alleged sex incidents in communities. Has the government lost control? Do they need to clamp down before things get even more fraught on the streets of Britain? Get in touch the usual way. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now it's your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories: more than 23,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel this year, as hundreds more made the journey this morning. People smuggling gangs have taken advantage of thick fog in the English Channel to launch multiple small boats towards UK waters today. GB News can also reveal more than 320 migrants made the crossing yesterday. The number who have crossed so far this year is more than 55% up on the same period last year. 2 people have been arrested following anti-immigration protests overnight at a hotel in Epping. Essex police said a police officer sustained minor injuries after protesters clashed with police. Fireworks were let off and eggs were thrown outside the hotel. Police vehicles were also damaged. It's the latest demonstration to happen outside the Bell Hotel after a 38-year-old man was accused of sexual assault. The child who died in a school coach crash in Minehead yesterday was a 10-year-old boy. Police say 6 children and 3 adults remain in hospital. 21 others were taken to hospital following the collision between Wedden Cross and Timbercombe yesterday afternoon. Several had serious injuries, including 2 children. There were 60 to 70 people on board at the time. Tributes have been paid to the victims of the heartbreaking and devastating crash. One message said, "Our community is holding you all tight and surrounding you with love." Another said, "We're truly heartbroken to hear of the tragic events affecting the pupils, staff and families of Minehead Middle School." Sir Keir Starmer said there are no adequate words to acknowledge the death of a child. Elsewhere, no further action will be taken over Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury. Officers said they'd taken advice from the Crown Prosecution Service and decided there's not enough evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction for any offence. The Avon and Somerset Force started investigating the Irish group's show at the festival last month, as well as comments by punk rap duo Bob Vylan. It said they were looking at possible public order incidents and a senior detective had been appointed to lead the case. However, the force said it was still investigating Bob Vylan's performance after the duo led on-stage chants of death to the IDF. Russian spies and hackers targeting the UK and others have been sanctioned today by the government. Today's measures target 3 units of the Russian Military Intelligence Agency, and 18 military intelligence officers have conducted a sustained campaign of malicious cyber activity over many years. Foreign Secretary David Lammy said GRU spies are running a campaign to destabilise Europe, undermine Ukraine's sovereignty and threaten the safety of British citizens. Diane Abbott says the Labour leadership wants me out and that her comments in a BBC interview released this week were factually correct after she was suspended from the Labour Party for a second time. Her suspension comes after she doubled down on comments about racism for which she'd previously apologised. She's the 5th Labour MP to be suspended by Sir Keir Starmer this week. Ms Abbott was suspended by Labour in 2023 after writing a letter to The Observer comparing racism experienced by people of colour with that seen by other groups. She apologised and was readmitted to the party before the 2024 general election. Rachel Maskell, Brian Leishman, Chris Hinchcliffe and Neil Duncan Jordan were also lost the whip this week. They now sit as independents in the Commons. Former Defence Secretary Grant Shapps says he'd make the same call again in a heartbeat when it comes to the Afghan data leak, saying Afghans who helped Britain risked execution and British special forces were exposed. The personal details of spies and special forces were included in the data breach that led to thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK. Information about more than 100 Britons was also contained in the breach. Shapps said the injunction blocking reporting of the breach at the time was quite rightly applied for his predecessor, and he believed at the time it should stay in place. The super injunction, preventing the reporting of even the existence of the injunction, was lifted earlier this week. And parts of southern England are set to be battered by torrential rain tomorrow, which could cause significant flooding and a danger to life, according to the Met Office. An amber warning for thunderstorms has been issued between 4 a.m. and 11 a.m. tomorrow, spanning major towns and cities including London, Brighton, Portsmouth and Cambridge. Forecasters warned of sudden flooding in roads and homes, with some more remote communities at risk of being cutting off. And those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound will buy you $1.3441 and €1.1539. The price of gold, £2,495.20 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 8,992 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Tatiana, and welcome to the top of the hour. Astonishing scenes in the Channel this afternoon. Our Home Security editor, Mark White, was perched on the white cliffs of Dover, and in real time, we saw yet another boat roll into harbour. I'm joined in our studio by Chris Hope, our political editor. Chris, there are two more boats coming over mid-Channel as we speak. We've heard repeatedly from the Prime Minister now did a deal with France, one in, one out, they called that. Did another deal with Germany this week about making it illegal to store boats and engines in Germany. Like, why isn't it already illegal? And that won't even come in until the end of the year. But I want to get a flavour from you of what Downing Street are doing about this, because we have this, it's almost like we do the same show 4 or 5 times a week at the moment because there are so many red days. Downing Street said, oh, yeah, well, we know it's a big issue, we're on the matter, but do they actually grasp it?
Every day in lobby, when I go to the briefing of the number 10 spokesman, I often ask about the small boats crisis. It is something which infuriates our viewers. There are concerns. We're watching now on footage there, Mark White earlier, looking at these boats arriving there. That's a border force vessel arriving earlier. Mark White, our colleague, was filming that. We know it's going to happen. He says today 350 people will cross the Channel. Many of them, maybe most of them, are young men, it seems, rather than what we're told by the government in some quarters.
Well, that's right. Darren Jones was saying they are mostly women and children. I don't know what footage he was watching. It certainly wasn't this.
The images certainly don't stack up with that. Number 10 say today to me that we know the challenge we have to take on. We are attacking these gangs and the business model. These criminal cartels have been operating with impunity for years. This government is trying to smash the gangs. The last government stopped the boats, and frankly, neither are working. And it is frustrating and difficult. Numbers are up 40% this year. That could be because the Rwanda plan, which would have put people off from coming to the country, was dropped within 2 days of forming a government last July. That soaked up attention, effort, people within the Home Office. I think they did let the issue of putting up migrants in hotels get away from them. This government is now moving them from hotels into private properties in communities. But they look at this and they wonder, what on earth is this government doing? It goes against, I think, Martin, British fair play. These are not people who are joining the queue, coming across when they're judged to be in need on a humanitarian level. They're paying simply thousands of pounds to people smugglers and then arriving, as you see there, by a border force boat.
And the boats are rolling in this side of the Channel. We have some other footage. Don't know if we can get that up. Incredible scenes. The other side of the Channel, from the Dunkirk beaches, Mark White got hold of that. And this is of the illegal immigrants, that side of the Channel, pelting petrol bombs towards the gendarmes. Total lawlessness over that side of the Channel. The police struggling to maintain any kind of law and order. And, of course, as well as an issue of quantity, there's an issue of quality. If people are going to throw petrol bombs that side of the Channel, what are they going to do when they get this side of the Channel?
Well, I was there last week for the press conference between Emmanuel Macron and Sir Keir Starmer, and it was put to him by one of the reporters, you have got this hundreds of thousands of millions of pounds from this government, and you're not stopping the boat. Half a billion quid. We're watching on screen now, for those on the radio, images of French riot police taking on those migrants in northern France. And I was struck by the answer from Emmanuel Macron. He said that for every pound you're spending, we're spending €3, so they're spending 3 times what we've offered to them, and it is putting a lot of pressure on northern France, on the mayors in that area. They aren't happy. I mean, I know your viewers can't see it, but Martin Daubney is raising an eyebrow there as I said that. But there are concerns in northern France
because it's not working. Look at these scenes. There are petrol bombs being pelted at police. The police that are surrounded, they're tear gassing them. And there's smoke everywhere, they're chasing shadows, they're not getting the numbers down. The numbers are going up, it simply isn't working.
But it almost proves the point that it's a global issue. So this government makes a point. It's not
French
just
issue.
a Kent issue or a South Coast of England issue. It's also a Northern France issue. Those pictures there of burning fires, looking on screen now, we're looking at there at Sir Keir Starmer, William Emmanuel Macron and Friedrich Merz. These three leaders now see themselves as part of the E3. They are running almost the continent of Europe's security, it seems. We, of course, the UK, are outside the European Union.
Well, they're failing.
Well, they are
failing on border control.
They are failing, but
all three of those countries there are failing provably, statistically, on border control. They're failing.
They are failing, and they are telling us to bear with them. But I think this year will be a record year. And I think unless this government can get a grip on small boats, they are writing a really bad example. They are writing almost the attack lines for the parties at the next general election, which will be a real problem for Labour.
Mark White was saying in the last hour that at this rate, in 6 weeks, we'll be up to 36,000 illegal immigrant arrivals at our coast, and that will be the second highest ever. And it could even be a record year. Whatever these three gentlemen there are doing, it simply is pinging off the armour of the people smugglers. There's simply too much money. They're simply too lucrative.
They're all bound, of course, by the European Convention on Human Rights. And I think the images we saw today from Mark White, and of course he's often down there with his producer, they are weaponising that debate. And that's why we've got the Tories going probably towards committing this autumn, we expect, to withdrawing from the ECHR. Of course, we know Robert Jenrick and others in that shadow cabinet will wait
14 years to do all this, Chris. That's what people would say to that.
Wait and see what Kevin Baird not said. And that's why Reform UK saying we're going to pull out the ECHR is so politically advantageous for them.
Yeah, Chris, well, please stick with us. I'd like your take on this next political story. It's another asylum calamity. This time, it's the ongoing Afghan data breach cover-up, as lawyers are seeking to use human rights laws to force the government to bring tens of thousands of Afghans to the UK after their names were leaked. Well, 100,000 people could now make their claim under the ECHR, claiming that their human rights were breached because they are in danger of reprisals from the Taliban. And meanwhile, it has been revealed that as few as 1 in 16 Afghans identified in the data breach had genuine claims for asylum. That means 15 out of 16 of all arrivals under this scheme were bogus claims. It's an astonishing figure. Let's speak now to my next guest. That's the political scientist, Dr. Weeda Mehran, who lived under the Taliban in Afghanistan. Dr. Mehran, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so delighted to have your company because a lot of people in Britain are asking a serious question. What is it like in Afghanistan, living under the Taliban, particularly in terms of women's rights, particularly in terms of male attitudes towards women, and by inference from that, what kind of men might we be importing into Britain right now?
Thank you very much for having me, and glad to be here with you and your viewers. The Taliban continues to treat women in Afghanistan, as well as not just women, religious and ethnic communities in Afghanistan, in the same oppressive manner as during their first emirate in the late 1990s. That's prior to the Taliban being ousted by the US forces. Now, restrictions on women by the Taliban has intensified. They have deprived half of the population of their basic human rights, such as access to education, freedom of movement, and the right to work. And these restrictions have been increased since the Taliban took over, which defies all the narratives of the Taliban, the so-called narrative of the Taliban 2.0, with changes being implicated in that version of the Taliban. So from where I stand, my experience of having lived under the Taliban's rule way back in the 1990s, late 1990s, is exactly the same or heartbreakingly similar, so similar with what millions of other Afghan women are experiencing, the life under the Taliban right now. In the backdrop of this, what the Taliban has done right now, the Taliban regime, they have increasingly consolidated and centralized the power, particularly under the current supreme leader, who has steadily tightened his grip and consolidated control, promoting religious interpretation of Sharia law, which is very strict on the country and oppressing the women in particular.
Could I ask you, with that in mind, if that is the if the lawmakers, the Taliban, have that attitude of almost systemic misogyny, where women have little or no rights, if the citizens of that country, the regular Afghanis, are imbibing that, is it fair to say that their cultural values, if they're imported into the United Kingdom, are incompatible with our own? And might that help explain why presently in the United Kingdom we're seeing Afghani nationals committing sex crimes at 22 times the rate of that committed by the indigenous British population?
I don't have specific information, unfortunately, on those statistics, but that's very unfortunate and very concerning issues that you're raising there. I would not say that that type of culture is ubiquitous and amongst Afghans from Afghanistan. That being said, there are two sides of the issue. The Taliban imposing certain type of interpretation of Sharia law on the whole population of Afghanistan. That's about 60 million, perhaps. We don't even have exact statistics. So on the population, but that's one side of the issue. We do have patriarchal culture in Afghanistan that is more prevalent in certain parts of the country versus others. Now, concerns about bringing in that type of mentality and patriarchy and attitudes towards women, that's a valid concern. However, that does not characterize and cannot be generalized to the whole population in Afghanistan. And that is why it is deeply unfortunate and concerning that the list of asylum seekers was leaked. And it's even more troubling for me and million others, particularly concerned Britons, that the efforts were made to conceal the breach. My key concern is that what impact the leak has already had. There should be a clear assessment and investigation of whether and how this exposure has put asylum seekers at risk. If the documents were leaked some time ago, which appears to be the case, then the next question is, aren't those who have already been their names divulged, aren't those already in danger? On one hand, the leak has compromised the safety of asylum seekers. Many of them would be legitimate asylum seekers.
Sorry, but my point is the safety of the asylum seekers is a valid issue, but I'm also talking about the safety of British citizens. Yeah. If 15 out of 16 asylum claims are bogus, and we have no idea of the cultural values of these men. And you already established that if they're living under Sharia law, it's fair to say they might have far lesser, attitudes towards women than British men do.
That is a valid concern, and that was exactly my next point. Is on the other hand, there's actually the whole leaking and this unfortunate event has undermined the government's ability to truly vet applicants and their families. Both outcomes actually carry serious implications, serious security implications. Now, that being said, obviously, I categorically deny that that is a characteristic of the Afghan culture, which encompasses millions of people. But diminishing the ability of the British government to vet them appropriately, that is the main concern, and that should be addressed, and there should be clarity and explanations on that.
Thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Fascinating guest. Please do join us again. That's the political scientist, Dr. Weeda Moran, who lived under the Taliban rule in Afghanistan. Coming up next, under Keir Starmer's EU reset, it's emerged that Britain will be a rule taker. You have to pay millions of pounds to Brussels. Are we slowly rejoining the European Union? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. Thanks.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk then? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:26 with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Now, Britain is to be made to pay into the European Union's coffers as the price for Keir Starmer's so-called reset deal with the European Union. And today, new EU documents demand financial contributions to the bodies that manage food standards and also the carbon market rules that Britain will have to follow. Now, it was also revealed that Britain will be blocked from making any changes or amendments to those rules, making effectively the UK an EU rule taker despite Brexit. Well, let's speak now with the Brussels correspondent at The Telegraph, Joe Barnes. Joe, been way too long. Of course, you're the correspondent when I was over there back in 2019. You've written an excellent piece in The Telegraph today. You've clearly laid out why you believe Britain will be taking rules and paying in money. Tell us more.
Thank you. Yeah, good to see you again, Martin. It's been a while. Yes, what's interesting is you're sifting through all these EU documents and you come across the set of documents that are uploaded in the shady part of the Commission's website that basically set out the negotiating mandate for the EU to complete Keir Starmer's Brexit reset. So, 1 minute shock, you thought this deal that Keir Starmer had got and agreed, I think back in May with Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission's president, Antonio Costa, the Council president, was done, complete. But no, still more negotiations to go. And as you read through those documents, it sort of sets out the terms of engagement the Commission, which negotiates on behalf of the EU's member states, will take. And it states, the EU has agreed to dynamically align to EU rules in food safety, known as SPS, and these carbon border emission taxes. And as part of that, the UK will have to submit to the ECJ, that European Court of Justice, those judges in Luxembourg being the final arbiter of these agreements. It will have no say in making those rules. So Britain will be consulted, but as soon as it reaches a stage where the European Council is discussing these rule changes in preparatory bodies, the UK will be blocked out and basically be left to pick up the pieces and implement those laws as soon as they're passed. And then you have the shock that the UK will also have to pay for the privilege of signing this deal. We don't know the financials yet, but it's going to have to pay into basically its contribution to the agencies that look after, so potentially the EU's Food Safety Agency. And I was doing a little bit of research. It's not a massive body. It's about 100 million euros a year. Back when the UK was a member of the EU, we paid about 10 to 12% of the budget. So that means we're probably going to be liable for about 10 million a year under that deal. But for you, Martin, your viewers at home who voted for Brexit, one of the reasons for voting Brexit was to end payments to Brussels, and that is going to be reintroduced.
So, I mean, Joe Barnes, quite simply, leaving the European Union meant not taking any rules from Brussels or Strasbourg. It meant not giving them another red penny of our money. And here we are, these two deals, part of this deal, this is the precise opposite. This is the worst of both worlds. We're not a member, but we're paying for the privilege, and Brussels is holding the whip hand.
I think that's what Boris Johnson and David Frost were so keen to avoid. So what I must say is these documents are the EU's negotiating mandate. Potentially, Keir Starmer is going to pull a rabbit out of the hat and negotiate the fact that he will have a say and he will not pay, but that's probably unlikely. We know how hard the EU negotiates. And it's just, what's quite interesting is these reset deals were done, and it was all about friendship. It was all about, there was a geopolitical need for bringing the UK and the EU closer again. It was all about new beginnings, I think Ursula von der Leyen called it. But the EU, as soon as the dust has settled on that and it gets to the business end of the deal, sort of reverts back to type and becomes that hard negotiator that won't allow cherry picking. Do you remember that phrase from Michel Barnier? And it basically won't allow any sort of deviations from its rule set. And Keir Starmer's got a big job to do if he wants to change that.
Now, Joe Barnes, a lot of people, perhaps like myself, were called conspiracy theorists when we said they won't allow a vote ever again. They don't want a second referendum. It's far easier, actually, to do this. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, gradual realignment, baby steps back towards Brussels, and over the course of 5 years, Joe Barnes, I put it to you, will have rejoined in all but name only.
It's still a long way away. But if you look at critics, yourself, Martin, you were an MEP for the Brexit Party. You campaigned for a certain thing to happen. In the piece, we quote Ian Duncan Smith, Richard Tice, Mark Francois, ardent Brexiteers, who that is their belief that is what Keir Starmer wants. We're yet to see it. I was speaking to some government sources yesterday, and they said, look, that's the EU's negotiating position. We've got our red lines. We're not going to join the single market. We're not going to join the customs union. And ultimately, Labour says that this reset deal is worth about £9 billion a year for the UK's economy. So they're taking a pragmatic approach to tweaking and changing the deal and the relationship that was negotiated under first Theresa May and then Boris Johnson and David Frost.
OK, well, Joe Barnes, we'll have to leave it there. And unfortunately, we can't go over to the beer house afterwards there in the Brussels Square like we used to do back in the day. Long time no see. Joe Barnes, please come back on the show in future. Brussels correspondent at The Telegraph, Joe Barnes. Cheers, mate. Now, plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show. But for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, please stay safe. And here is your traffic and your travel update. And please stick with us.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A96 is closed at Newton of Petty due to an incident. Motorists should seek alternative routes. The M4 westbound is congested between junction 48 Hendy and junction 49 Pont Abraham. Northamptonshire's A43 northbound faces 15-minute delays. Suffolk's A14 westbound is delayed between junctions 58 Bucklesham and 57 Ipswich East. The M25 anti-clockwise in Surrey between junction 10 and 9 has delays from lane management. And on the trains, cross-country services between Nuneaton and Birmingham New Street are disrupted. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 5:30. More than 23,000 small boat migrants have crossed the Channel this year, as hundreds more made the crossing this morning. People smuggling gangs have taken advantage of thick fog in the English Channel today to launch multiple small boats towards UK waters. 2 arrests have been made at anti-immigration protests overnight at a hotel in Epping. Essex police said earlier that one police officer sustained minor injuries after protesters clashed with police. The child who died in a school coach crash in Minehead was a 10-year-old boy. 21 others were taken to hospital following the collision yesterday afternoon. 6 children and 3 adults remain in hospital. And no further action will be taken over Kneecap's performance at Glastonbury. Officers said they'd taken advice from the Crown Prosecution Service and decided there's not enough evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction for any offence. And those are the latest headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. The rest of today will continue to feel humid with the heat building in the south and the east, but that may well spark off some torrential thunderstorms later on. It's a messy picture across the UK at the moment. We've got low pressure to the northwest, a weather front bringing an area of cloud and some showers into the north and the west. But ahead of it, remarkably hot across East Anglia as well as the southeast of England, temperatures into the low 30s, sparking some thunderstorms across northeast England initially, and then we're watching this development over northern France as it pushes north into southeast England during the early hours, and that could bring a month or even 2 months worth of rain in under 3 hours for parts of London and the southeast, hence the amber thunderstorm warning, which is valid from 4 a.m. until 11 a.m. And it's this area of thundery rain moving north, intense rainfall rates falling onto dry ground. Further west, muggy start to the day, but some sunny spells, although quite a few showers into the west, a fresher feel for northwestern parts of the UK. But we keep the high temperatures in the east and the southeast, although moderated, of course, by these outbreaks of rain that are increasingly spreading north across central and eastern parts of the UK. So many places will start off Saturday with heavy bouts of wet weather and some hail, lightning around as well. But the main focus for the heavy rain moves north as Saturday continues into southern and eastern Scotland by the end of the day. Where it's raining, of course, it's not going to feel particularly hot, but elsewhere we keep the humid feel where the sun does come through across central parts. It is going to feel very warm once again. Then heading into Saturday night, further spells of rain into the northeast, another batch of wet weather and potential thunderstorms moves into the southwest along with brisk winds. It stays very showery into the start of next week.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power. Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:38 on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I'm with Martin Daubney with me on GB News. Now, there's just 3 weeks left now to get your entry into our latest Great British Giveaway. Your chance to win £54,321. That's right, 54321 in tax-free moolah. And here's Hayley Sparks with all details you need to enter.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14, PO Box 8690, Derby, DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, 4 years on since Boris Johnson's so-called Freedom Day, campaigners are back. And this time, they've gone big. Now, with images projected onto Parliament, onto Tower Bridge and onto number 10 Downing Street, the Together Association is warning of a creeping digital surveillance state and demanding a new digital bill of rights. Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio in Westminster by the co-founder of the Together Association, Alan Miller. Alan, always an absolute pleasure. So, way back in the dark days of lockdowns, a lot of us were very, very concerned about things like COVID, passports, how these big pressure points are being used to force all of us to become ostensibly walking barcodes. 4 years on, here we are. Tell us about your campaign.
So our campaign, Martin, is to say that 4 years on, Boris, just to remind people, Boris Johnson, Freedom Day, but we're going to have vaccine passports. Vaccine passports that don't do anything except for make an intrusion on people. And lots of people challenged this. We had over 360,000 signatures. We went to Downing Street. We'd lost 45,000 care workers who wouldn't get a mandatory jab, but they'd been working for a year. We then have a situation where we did stop that happening to care workers, NHS 100, and many of us campaigned. It became very apparent that they fell back on the vaccine passport then, but now there's a push. There's a push around new things. They're saying, well, for borders and crime and for fraud and just going down the pub, that they're attempting to implement this.
OK, I just need to interrupt a moment, just to go back through some of the moments. And Tony Blair is a man who always comes up in this conversation. Tony Blair, of course, has been after digital IDs since the very beginning. We saw, actually, Alan Miller, during lockdowns, where Israel had the world's most potent digital ID. I think it's called their Green Pass. You had to have this Green Pass to go to the synagogue, to go to the supermarket, to go to the library. Tony Blair wanted the same in Britain.
It's absolutely scandalous. I mean, Tony Blair, whenever there's a situation, his answer is, let's have digital ID. Winston Churchill was right in 1952 when he said that is not the way that we do it here in Britain. No national identity cards. We've got passports, Martin. We've got driver's licences. The people who say it's good for borders and migration, how's that going to help with people who are in Epping or anywhere else right now? We should have a strong border force and proper policing without fear or favour. The idea that people who throw away passports on ID are somehow going to be on this digital ID scheme is going to be us, the public. And the concerns are myriad. There's concerns around tracking us. The head of the Bank of International Settlements has said if we got central bank digital currency, which the EU has now got and 27 nations are pushing, we can track every transaction. Yeah. There's a question of debanking, and we've seen all that happen. People will be aware of it around political views. Free speech online, the Online Safety Act, the Digital Services Act in the EU. And just so many people who are excluded, who can't get on apps, older people, a range of them, or may not just want to be on there. We've campaigned around cash and freedom of speech, but this digital Bill of Rights is where everything is held together.
Alan Miller, I want to press you on a story I covered earlier on, which I think I'm in broad agreement with a lot of what you say. But Notting Hill Carnival this year, they're thinking about, for the first time, having facial recognition of everybody to try and track knife criminals, rapists, violent criminals. And it makes me think, do you know what? Is that a price worth paying? If we can weed out the worst amongst us, is it a price worth paying for all of us? What would you say to that?
It's a very serious question. Is it a price worth paying to lock everyone away so there's no crime? Let them be locked at home. Let's carry on the lockdown. And then just, not let anyone do anything. There are risks in society, but we need policing without fear or favour. We need intelligence gathering. We need proper attention to that. We don't need DEI policies and police dancing around in all these mad outfits. What we need is robust policing without fear or favour, research gathering. Facial recognition for the whole of Britain is a problem. But we know they've got CCTV cameras everywhere, Martin, but there's issues with dealing with crime. We need to implement the laws that we've got with robust authority. We need to dispense with this mad DEI obsession, but we need not to allow the creeping, and it's not just the fact that they're pushing the idea of a BRIC card, it's that GovUK have a digital wallet, and increasingly they're trying to push everyone towards it. And together we're asking everyone to do the consultation that the parliamentary inquiry is doing, because they like to keep that under wraps a bit, but there's a consultation. We're saying, please get involved. All your viewers, get involved with the togetherdeclaration.org. Have your voices heard. We've stopped this before. We can do it again. We need a national debate about privacy, about surveillance, about autonomy, and then to ring-fence all those liberties and the freedoms that our ancestors have fought for. They're really essential. I'd invite everyone to get involved.
Alan Miller, passionate as ever. Great to see you. Thanks for coming to the show. Appreciate your time. That's the co-founder of the Together Association, Alan Miller. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun this year, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Lots of blue skies and strong hot sunshine around the Mediterranean at the moment. There's going to be a bit of a breeze blowing, however, this weekend, especially for Crete and Cyprus. Maybe one or two showers inland across Turkey, but again, most of the coast's dry and sunny. Same goes for Italy and much of southern Spain, along with the Balearics and the Canaries. Also set fair. Temperatures in Tenerife close to 30 Celsius. We'll have highs here of 29 for the next few days and similar temperatures in Barcelona.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, how about meeting the new ABBA? It's what a lot of people are calling Dad Harmony. It's a new Swedish a cappella group that are the biggest TikTok sensation you can imagine. They are everywhere at the moment, and they join us now. Really good to see you all. With us, we have this morning Thomas, Michael, Sebastian, Peter and Adam. Not necessarily in that order, but I know. There we go. Gents, it's really good to see you. I've got to ask, first and foremost, how did you get started? How do you even get together and think, this is something we can do?
Yeah, it's actually all of a coincidence, to be honest. It was, we were friends, but we were Peter had a bachelor party. And like 10 p.m. or something, we started to sing. And I recorded that song. And for some reason, I put it out on my TikTok account with like 7 followers or something. And then it blew up and got like, the first video got 22 million views, I think.
Beautiful.
Just
really
gorgeous.
Beautiful.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 10 to 6. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on this beautiful Friday afternoon here on GB News. Now, Donald Trump is U-turning as he orders the release of the Epstein court documents after mounting pressure from his core MAGA voter base. Now, the US president turned on his MAGA supporters, calling them stupid after they became frustrated about him going back on a key election pledge, and that was, of course, to release the Epstein files. Well, let's get more now with the chair of Republicans Overseas UK, the wonderful Greg Swenson. Greg, welcome to the show. So, Donald Trump was earlier this week saying this was a complete hoax. Only stupid people believe it. Idiots who are playing the Democrats' games, and now being forced into something of a U-turn. This story is too big to ignore, is it not? Greg Swenson. Okay, Greg Swenson is trying to get an audio connection. Just repeating there, it was an astonishing press conference. It was the Crown Prince of Bahrain was over at the White House, and everybody was expected to talk about this multi-billion deal with Boeing, with nuclear power plants into America. And all the journalists wanted to talk about were the Epstein files. And a key point here is who is on the list. There's a huge story about missing footage of Mr. Epstein's final moments in that jail cell. Did he commit suicide? Was he killed? It's one of the greatest conspiracy theories of our time. And into the absence of information, into that vacuum, of course, spreads theories. And before Donald Trump was elected back in last November, he promised to release the Epstein files in their entirety. Who was in the book? Who knew what? Who went to that island? What, if any, lewd activities were they involved in? Now, historically, Mr. Trump himself had social connections with Jeffrey Epstein? A lot of people did, including the Clintons, including a lot of other celebrities, including, of course, Prince Andrew. Now, releasing those sacred and censored documents was meant to put this to bed once and for all. Except once Donald Trump was placed in office, there seemed to be a growing reluctance to shine a full spotlight upon them. And a lot of people started saying, well, was that because Donald Trump himself may be implicated? Well, this week, allegations of a crude letter sent to Jeffrey Epstein, signed by President Trump, allegedly a crude and sexualised letter featuring the drawing of a naked woman to mark the convicted paedophile's 50th birthday back in 2003. Now, this is according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. Now, Donald Trump said this is fake news. He's denying anything to do with it. He wished Jeffrey Epstein at the time a very happy birthday, saying, may every day be another wonderful secret. In a birthday album compiled for the American financier by his partner, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell. This story will not go away, and now it seems that Donald Trump will, in fact, release a tranche of documents. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, will release them, and what will come out of it? Will Donald Trump be part of the mesh? We simply don't know. That's me done for another week. I'll be back Monday, 3 till 6. Up next is News to Go tonight, hosted by the wonderful Nana Akua. Nana, what's on your menu?
Oh, thank you very much, Martin. Look, it's a busy one. Diana, but what can I say about this woman? For goodness sake, one time she's sorry about her own hierarchy of racism, where she put black people at the top and compared Jewish racism to those who are to redheads, and now she's gone back on all of it and said, no, it wasn't. I'm not annoyed or upset about what I said. I'm quite happy to say that. So, of course, she's been suspended again. But then that's the 5th MP now that has been suspended in a matter of a month. In fact, last year, this time, Keir Starmer suspended 7. So is he a weak or is he a strong leader? All of that on the way after the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. The rest of today will continue to feel humid with the heat building in the south and the east, but that may well spark off some torrential thunderstorms later on. It's a messy picture across the UK at the moment. We've got low pressure to the northwest, a weather front bringing an area of cloud and some showers into the north and the west. But ahead of it, remarkably hot across East Anglia as well as the southeast of England, temperatures into the low 30s, sparking some thunderstorms across northeast England initially, and then we're watching this development over northern France as it pushes north into southeast England during the early hours. And that could bring a month or even 2 months worth of rain in under 3 hours for parts of London and the southeast, hence the amber thunderstorm warning, which is valid from 4 a.m. until 11 a.m. And it's this area of thundery rain moving north, intense rainfall rates falling onto dry ground. Further west, a muggy start to the day, but some sunny spells, although quite a few showers into the west, a fresher feel for northwestern parts of the UK. But we keep the high temperatures in the east and the southeast, although moderated, of course, by these outbreaks of rain that are increasingly spreading north across central and eastern parts of the UK. So many places will start off Saturday with heavy bouts of wet weather and some hail, lightning around as well. But the main focus for the heavy rain moves north as Saturday continues into southern and eastern Scotland by the end of the day. Where it's raining, of course, it's not going to feel particularly hot, but elsewhere we keep the humid feel. Where the sun does come through across central parts, it is going to feel very warm once again. Then heading into Saturday night, further spells of rain into the northeast, another batch of wet weather and potential thunderstorms moves into the southwest along with brisk winds. It stays very showery into the start of next week.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com.